Story 1.
I exposed my fiancé's cheating and humiliated her and my best friend just days before our wedding. Today, I want to share how I discovered my fiancé was cheating just weeks before our planned wedding, leading me to break off the engagement. I'm a 35-year-old guy, and we were engaged for 3 years, aiming to marry in June. We'd been together for over 2 years, starting back in college, where we knew each other but weren't close friends. After college, while working on Wall Street, we reconnected at a friend's party and eventually started dating. After 2 years together, I decided it was time to make things official and proposed. At that point, my fiancée was temporarily working at a thrift store with her friend, with no plans to work after marriage. I proposed when I felt financially prepared to support my family. Everything seemed great. We were living together and ready for marriage, until I noticed a change in my fiancée. She started making excuses, avoiding closeness, and attributing it to stress as the wedding approached. When I tried to discuss it, she insisted it was wedding stress, which seemed reasonable. My married friends shared that their wives had also acted differently before their weddings, making me feel reassured. Despite wanting to help with wedding preparations, a crucial work project demanded my full focus for a promotion. Feeling guilty about her handling everything alone, she assured me it was fine, with my best friend, M, providing assistance. My best friend, also 35, was helping my fiancé with wedding preparations. We'd been close friends since school, and he was even my best man. I appreciated that he got along well with my fiancé, as I didn't want any tension between them. At that time, he was going through a tough breakup, and the wedding preparation served as a distraction from his loneliness at the house he shared with his ex-girlfriend. I was thrilled about marrying the woman of my dreams, and despite long work hours, I felt energized because I saw it as an investment in my future family. Signs of trouble started surfacing, though. Despite my late work hours, my fiancé started coming home even later than me. When I questioned her, she made vague excuses about the challenges of bridal shopping, which I believed at the time. Despite my attempts to trust her, a feeling inside me suggested she wasn't telling me everything. One Sunday, I planned to spend the entire day with her, but she said she had a dress fitting. While she was in the shower, her phone, left on the bed, kept buzzing with notifications. I woke up due to the continuous vibrations and checked her phone, but it didn't recognize my face or accept the passcode we had shared. This was surprising since we had exchanged passwords when we started dating. Now, nearing marriage, she had changed her passcode. When she saw me with her phone, she panicked briefly but composed herself. I asked why she changed her password. Surprised by my direct question, she took a moment to reply, saying it was to keep wedding dress pictures a surprise. While her excuse seemed reasonable, I wondered why she didn't just tell me instead of changing the passcode. It lingered in my mind all day. The next day at work, my fiancé's best friend called, unable to reach her for a dress fitting appointment. I assumed she was at home and asked if they had the appointment the previous day. Her response made me feel like I'd asked a ridiculous question. The store was closed yesterday. Convinced my fiancé had lied about her dress fitting, I needed to figure out what she was hiding. Deciding not to confront her directly, I received a surprising call from my best friend, who was helping with the wedding. He rarely called, either at his office or assisting with wedding preparations. After some small talk, he sensed something was wrong and asked. I debated whether to tell him about my fiancé's lie, but decided to share. I explained how she said she was going to the atelier, but her best friend claimed the appointment was today, not yesterday. He reassured me, saying she had a dress fitting for the dress rehearsal yesterday and today's appointment was for the wedding dress. Though uncertain, I believed him, feeling guilty for doubting my fiancé. My best friend's explanations made sense. Knowing he was in constant touch with my fiancé about wedding preparations, I breathed a sigh of relief and returned to work. Everything went smoothly for the following days. My future wife was still acting differently, but it was due to the stress of wedding preparations. Despite her assurance that everything would be fine, eventually I informed her about a late client meeting, which got rescheduled for the next day. When I returned home that night, she wasn't there, so I called to ask where she was. She lied, claiming she was at home and expressed how much she missed me. Realizing her deceit, I told her I was already home and hung up. She arrived within half an hour, but I decided not to trust her completely. Despite the oddity, she returned with groceries, explaining she attended cooking classes as a surprise for me. I urged her not to lie, emphasizing the importance of honesty in our relationship. Despite her nodding and hugging me, I remained cautious. When I tried to kiss her, she deflected, insisting on putting away the groceries. Sensing something wrong with my fiancé, I made it a goal to uncover the truth behind her lies, changed passcode, and unusual behavior. That night, I pondered the possible reasons for her dishonesty, suspecting infidelity. Despite feeling guilty, I believed it necessary to address the issue before our marriage. Considering confiding in my best friend, I refrained due to his ongoing breakup, opting to investigate alone. I monitored my fiancé's activities, checking the CCTV camera outside our home. The CCTV revealed nothing suspicious, only her routine activities while I was at work. Left with no better options, I contemplated using her phone, but she had changed the passcode. With no other choice, I decided to follow her discreetly to discover the truth before our marriage. The next day, pretending to leave for work, I parked ahead and observed her leaving, discreetly following her while maintaining a considerable distance. She visited a thrift store and a florist before returning home. Despite her routine, my suspicions persisted. Planning to observe her for another day or two, I hoped to dispel doubts. Everything seemed fine when I returned home that evening, and the pattern continued the next day. Although she displayed no unusual behavior, my suspicion lingered. I considered the possibility that she sensed my surveillance, but quickly dismissed the thought. Keeping my discovery to myself and maintaining enough distance while following her car, on the third morning, my best friend called about planning my bachelor's party. I let him know I was okay with whatever he wanted to arrange. There was a lot of noise in the background, including some very loud songs, which I recognized as old Spanish tunes. Unable to ask him where he was due to another work call, I had to rush to the office urgently. Feeling there wasn't a point in following my fiancée since her routine remained consistent, I focused on my work. At the office, the jeweler making our wedding rings called, stating my fiancée hadn't provided her ring size, so they contacted me. I called my fiancée to ask for her ring measurement, and to my surprise, loud old Spanish songs played in the background as soon as she answered. I questioned her whereabouts, and she mentioned being with her best friend, not mine. I conveyed the jeweler's message, and she assured me she would visit the store later to provide her ring measurement. Ending the call, something felt off. Maybe it was a coincidence that I heard the same Spanish songs with both my fiancé and best friend, but I doubted it. Calling my best friend again, he said he was at a cafe for a client meeting. However, I recognized my fiancé's high-pitched laugh in the background, which abruptly stopped. My friend quickly made an excuse and ended the call. They had no reason to lie if they were together, as they used to hang out for wedding-related matters. So why did they lie? I suspected the answer in my subconscious, but wasn't ready to accept it. I chose to stay quiet until I had concrete evidence. Instead of going home directly after work, I visited my best friend's place. Not finding his car, I noted the time, sighed, and proceeded home. Realizing it took only 23 minutes to get home from his place, the same time my fiancé claimed to return from a cooking class, heightened my suspicions. Upon arriving home, my fiancé was still not there. As I freshened up, I contemplated the turmoil in my life. About to get married, yet my fiancé might be cheating with my best friend. Despite a small hope that my fears were baseless, the looming suspicion persisted. The following day, I once again trailed my fiancée to the thrift store, her regular spot. She carried on with her usual routine, and just when frustration set in due to the lack of evidence, my best friend entered the thrift store. Yet, it didn't confirm anything. Perhaps he was merely helping with wedding preparations. He exited after 45 minutes, leaving me without substantial proof to confirm or deny my doubts, which grew increasingly frustrating. The next morning, during breakfast, I recalled leaving a file in the bedroom. Retrieving it, I found my fiancée getting dressed after her shower. Passing by, I noticed a hickey on her shoulder blades. Clearly, I hadn't given it to her, as it had been more than a month since our last intimate moment. I stopped, and she appeared surprised. Tracing my finger over the hickey, she shivered. It was unsettling. I didn't need to ask. She started explaining on her own, claiming it was an insect bite from the previous day. Disbelieving, I told her it didn't seem like an insect bite. She grew scared and continued with more lies. I remained silent, more determined than ever to find evidence to confirm my suspicion. The first thing I did upon getting into my car was check the CCTV recording of the previous day. As expected, my fiancée wasn't wearing an off-shoulder top. She got into the car in a dress fully covering her shoulder. Though seemingly useless, I spent that day following her, finally discovering something. She went straight to my best friend's house. I witnessed him coming out and hugging her. They stayed inside for almost the entire day. I knew that if I went there, my doubt would be confirmed and I'd find them in bed together. Instead of ringing the doorbell, I used the spare key my friend had given me for emergencies. He had my house's spare key as well. I silently opened the door and went inside, finding my fiancé's purse on the living room couch. I followed the noise to the bedroom, taking light steps to avoid making any sound. I finally reached the bedroom. I could hear their voices clearly. My fiancé was telling him how I almost caught her that day due to the hickey and that they had to be more careful. After some hums, all I could hear were unmistakable intimate sounds. I opened the door very slowly and saw my fiancé in bed with my best friend. I took a photo with my phone and then shut the door, returning to the living room. The bedroom door opened again, and my fiancé came out laughing. Her smile vanished as soon as she saw me. She was wearing my best friend's shirt and nothing else. She stood there frozen, and my best friend, who followed her out, also froze upon seeing me. Angry and unable to think straight, I punched my best friend in the jaw. I told my fiancé I never wanted to see her face again and stormed out of his house. Instead of going to work, I went straight home, lacking the energy to face the betrayal, which stung from both my best friend and my fiancé. Just as I was exiting my car, my fiancé arrived home too. I demanded she leave my property, but she didn't listen and followed me inside, tears in her eyes, begging me to listen. I knew nothing she said could make their actions okay, but I decided to hear her out. I told her to speak. She was initially shocked, wondering how I agreed, but then she began explaining. The whole situation started when she began planning our wedding. After my best friend's breakup, she claimed to be consoling him because he was really low due to the breakup, and one thing led to another, resulting in them kissing. She insisted it was never meant to be anything more, just helping him move on. I was just helping him and moving on, she said while crying. The audacity of this woman. You were helping him move on by sleeping with him? I snapped in a harsh tone. She tensed at my voice but continued apologizing, expressing a willingness to do anything for my forgiveness. She pleaded, emphasizing that we had our whole life in front of us and that I couldn't let it go because of one mistake she had made. The more she spoke, the angrier I got. She was telling me to let go of her cheating like it was nothing. Despite emphasizing the importance of loyalty, she did this. I thanked my luck that I found this out before the wedding. Something came to my mind then. I could easily end our relationship right now and tell everyone that the wedding was off. The wedding was in 5 days. Or I could make her and my best friend actually suffer for their betrayal. I decided to go with the second one. I let my fiancée beg some more. She kept telling me how everything could be perfect from now on. She told me this was our chance to turn a new leaf and start our dream life together. I let her convince me that I shouldn't cancel anything and to let loose at the bachelor party. She told me that it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. All our guests were coming early so they could attend the bachelor party as well. I thought it was perfect, and then agreed to not cancel anything. She couldn't believe this was happening. She must have thought there was no chance I could forgive her for cheating, and she was right about that. She was just going to find out later what I did with cheaters. The day of the bachelor party came, and I met my best friend again. He insisted that he come to my house instead of the club we were going to. As soon as he entered the house, he started apologizing, telling me how sorry he was and how he didn't mean to ruin my relationship with my fiancée. I told him it was okay and that I forgave them. I told him that everyone made mistakes and I was giving them another chance. I went to the venue with him and met my other friends. None of them knew that I was faking it here and had no intention of actually forgiving him or my fiancée. I acted like I was having the time of my life. That night, I kept thinking about their betrayal. My fiancée was staying at her parents' house until the wedding, and that was for the best. I didn't think I could see her face without thinking about her betrayal. My thoughts went back to the day my best friend called me and told me she was going for the dress rehearsal dress fitting. He lied to me because she was with him, and they must have known that I had talked to her best friend and knew the store was closed. I had decided I was going to end everything over dinner so everyone would know what had actually happened and why the wedding was being called off. My fiancée was coming with her parents to dinner. I reached the venue earlier and talked with the staff to arrange a projector for me. The guests started arriving. Everyone in our immediate families and our closest friends were present for the dinner. None of them knew, but I told the officiant to come a bit late. My fiancée started panicking about the officiant not being there, but I smiled at her and told her it was fine. I then said to everyone that, to pass the time while the officiant got here, I had to share something with everyone. Someone in the wedding party said I could wait to make the toast later, but I said I wanted to do it right then. I began my speech by telling everyone how I met my fiancé and how our relationship had been so perfect. My fiancé looked at me with tears while she smiled. She was smiling because she didn't know what was coming for her. I told her that I was really grateful for everything she had done for me throughout. I told everyone how she had always prioritized me and my family first. I told everyone that she was the most thoughtful woman. She thought so much about others that she started sleeping with my best friend just to help him move on. As soon as I said that line, everyone got tense. My fiancé froze on the spot. There was pin-drop silence in the hall as I moved my attention to my then best friend. I told everyone how we had been best friends since school. I shared a memory of how, in school, we punched a guy because he asked out my best friend's then girlfriend. You really were like a brother to me, I said, looking him in the eye as I pulled out my phone and projected the picture I took that day. Everyone gasped at seeing my fiancé and best friend undressed in bed. Turning to my fiancé, I found her looking at the floor. I approached her and told her to never come in front of me again. I asked for my ring back, not that I cared much about it, but I didn't want her to have that piece of commitment. She handed it to me with shaky hands. I mentioned calling movers to relocate her stuff, warning her not to enter my property again. Whispers circulated and others stared. I thanked everyone for coming and declared the wedding over, shocking everyone. It was clear the wedding wouldn't happen. I said I'd send her the bill for everything, shocking her again. I shrugged, telling her she wasn't responsible anymore. Her infidelity led to the wedding's cancellation, so she'd pay for it. Exiting the hall, I never looked back at my fiancée or best friend. They made no attempts to convince me this time. Movers took her stuff the next day. I ensured nothing of hers was left to avoid excuses to return. I didn't need to send her the bills. Vendors contacted her directly. Blocking her on social media and her number, I avoided negativity, continuing with my head held high. I heard my ex-fiancée couldn't meet anyone's eyes and had gone to another state to stay with her cousins. My best friend never contacted me after that day, sending my house keys through a mutual friend. Everyone knew of their betrayal, and they faced the consequences of their karma. Living my life faithful to my fiancée, and as a good friend, I didn't deserve what they did. Taking therapy sessions to move on and lead a happy life, I thank everyone for listening. Update: 6 months have passed since I called off my wedding, almost a year in total. A mutual friend informed me that my ex-fiancée started dating my best friend, the one she betrayed me with. 2 months after the wedding was called off. Initially happy, they became gossip fodder as others found out, leading to problems. Eventually, my ex-best friend cheated on her with a colleague, and she learned about it months later, prompting a breakup. I share this since I've already shared everything else. Update: it's been 2 years since I found out my fiancé cheated on me with my best friend. In my last update, I mentioned she also broke up with him. Following the breakup, she attempted to contact me despite being blocked everywhere. It happened at a party, and she thought it was fitting to ask for forgiveness there, since everything started at a party. I laughed, making it clear that even if she were the last person on earth, I wouldn't get back with her. Embarrassed, she quickly ran away and never tried to approach me again. My ex-best friend also attempted to talk to me post-breakup. He explained he didn't come earlier to give me space and emphasized that our friendship was crucial, meaning more than any girl. I questioned why he dated my ex-fiancée after I called off the wedding, knowing I wouldn't like that. He was shocked, thinking I didn't know about them. I laughed, stating I knew everything but didn't care. I told him I didn't want friends like him anymore. Therapy has helped me realize I can't carry the burden of others' mistakes forever. I've started to let things go, and the betrayal doesn't hurt as much now. I'm content with my life, having earned a promotion through hard work. Good friends and a supportive family have been crucial. Trying to stay at my home was difficult due to too many memories with my ex-fiancée. I decided to sell it and move to another property. My friends and family helped me settle in, and shifting feels like the start of a new phase in life. I'm also dating a beautiful woman from my work who knows everything that happened to me. She's extremely understanding, and we're taking things slow. Time may reveal if she's the one for me. Trusting people completely is hard, but I'm trying. Despite the initial heartbreak, time heals everything. Back then, I thought I wouldn't date anyone again, but here I am. I take everything that happened as a lesson, not to trust anyone too much. People can deceive us. This experience also taught me the importance of being sure about life partners. My fiancée wanted to marry me for a comfortable life, whereas I believed in mutual love. I turned out to be wrong. She knew I'd take full responsibility for her if we married. That was the main reason she wanted the wedding so badly, and even approached me after her breakup. My wife wants my approval to be with a coworker, offering me the same freedom with another woman. We've been happily married for just over a year with a few minor arguments. We never discussed an open marriage before. Recently, she asked if I'd be with someone else if given the chance, but I declined because I'm satisfied with her. Her reaction surprised me. She seemed annoyed and admitted she would be with someone else. After some coaxing, she revealed it was a colleague she finds attractive. I asked if they had a sensual relationship, but she denied it. The conversation ended, but feeling suspicious, I checked her phone. I found explicit photos she had sent to the coworker, and they had been intimate. Now that it's out in the open, she wants my permission for them to meet under specific conditions, keeping it purely sensual. I was shocked, as she had never been flirty with others before. She confessed she finds him attractive and thinks it's a one-time opportunity. She emphasized it's just about physical attraction, not emotions. She mentioned his physical attributes but insisted it wouldn't go beyond intimacy, and she would regret not trying it. Despite telling her I only want her, she insists I use the free pass she offered. She even suggested finding someone else for me through her friends. Unsure of what to say, I told her I'd think about it. We love each other deeply, making this decision challenging. Update: I had an important discussion with my wife last night about our situation and our marriage's future. I started by informing her that I won't be using the free pass. She was upset, believing it was immature and petty. She thought I was trying to prove I'm better than her and don't need other women. I explained my decision comes from genuine love for her, both emotionally and physically. She argued it's unfair given my past experiences with more women before our marriage. She insisted it's only fair she gets the same opportunity. I questioned her about the coworker, wanting to understand how she knew so much about him. After over 30 minutes of questioning, she admitted to some physical contact but nothing more. They planned to meet, pending our discussion, and she expressed feeling awful about it since I didn't take the free pass. I insisted on meeting him beforehand and she agreed to bring him over. Trying to ease my upset, she suggested I might enjoy it, referencing past roleplay we had done. She even offered to video it for me, but I told her I'd only know my feelings afterward. I explained that if I'm only upset and not turned on, I won't approve of the meeting again. She understood, and we had great intimacy last night. She's been extra caring and even prepared breakfast and gave me a massage this morning. It's clear she truly cares for me and wants me to be happy. In essence, we now have an arrangement. If I don't like how it goes the first time they meet up, they'll end it. If she can't break it off, I'll seek counseling and prepare for the worst. Update: my wife met her co-worker last weekend, and without going into all the details, they were intimate. Afterward, I discussed boundaries with her, but she quickly got upset, claiming I had no right to dictate what two consenting adults do in the bedroom, even after I became more accepting of her being with him. This left a bad taste. Later, I asked if I could join them next time, and she seemed okay but needed her co-worker's approval. He wasn't comfortable, so I couldn't be there. Is it common not to set boundaries in open or casual relationships? Update: last weekend was a breaking point for me. She left on Saturday morning without showing any care for me, making me take pictures for the guy before leaving. She didn't even kiss me goodbye. She promised to be back that night, but she didn't show up. The next morning, she told me she stayed the night with him without asking or informing me. That's not the worst part. That night, she invited one of his friends, and things happened without consulting me. When she returned home, she shared all this without considering my feelings. When I got visibly upset, she dismissed it as unmanly and laughed. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. It was clear she no longer cared for me. No spouse would say anything like this to their partner if they actually cared for them. I was just shocked. At no point in our marriage until the other week did I notice any signs that she would be this way. She had always been the most loving, caring girl that I had ever met. It's like a switch flipped when she met that guy and she changed into a different person. I didn't know one person could change someone that much and that quickly. I'm 99% sure that she's going to end up dating this guy. She has spent the past few weekends together with him and even talks about him around me. The other night I told her that if she doesn't at least put in boundaries, I will leave. She said okay and laughed a lot. Without saying another word, I packed up some bags and booked a room at the nearest hotel. I've told my brother about this situation, and he has offered for me to come stay with him for a little while. I ended up going to his place for the night. She sent me some texts that night, and the next day she was acting upset and confused as to why I left. She was saying that she missed me. The next day, I knew I needed to go back to my house so that there wouldn't be as much of a chance that I would lose it. My brother went with me to help. When we got there, my wife was trying to talk to me. I had nothing to say to her at the moment, so I just ignored her and tried to get past her. She was grabbing me and trying to hold me. My brother helped get her off of me and told her that he would call the cops if she didn't stop messing with me. She ended up leaving. I haven't heard from her since. This situation has destroyed me. I tried to let her do this to make her happy. I didn't want it in the first place, but I tried to make myself like it to please her. I never saw any signs or anything that she would be this manipulative and this bad of a person before we got married. I don't know where any of this came from. She was the most amazing, thoughtful person ever. Now that this has happened, my whole outlook on life and relationships is different. So, what advice would you guys give me? Whether it's next steps in dealing with my current wife or in the future when I'm back in the dating game, how do I tell our families and friends? How do I speak to my wife about it? I'm really having a tough time handling all of this. Update: I left her last week and went to stay with my brother. After talking to him and reading several comments, I figured it would be a good idea to try to go back and stay at my house to make sure that I wouldn't lose it. The next day, when we got divorced, I decided to go back there. My brother was going with me too. When we got there, my wife was trying to talk to me and grab me. I ignored her the whole time and pretty much acted like she didn't exist. She got pretty rough and was beating on my chest. I finally pushed her away. My brother told her that if she didn't leave me alone, he would call the cops. She finally left after that. I didn't hear from her for the rest of that night. The next day, I received a picture of her and her new coworker. It was a normal selfie of them together. There was no text with it. I showed it to my brother, and he said that she must be sick in the head to do that. I finally met up with a divorce attorney for an initial meeting and consultation. It went well, and he told me things I needed to know in preparation for the divorce. He said that the pictures and videos I had of them would be helpful evidence. The only problem with the situation is that she may prove that I agreed to everything, even though there was manipulation involved. My brother and I went over to my parents to sit down and talk with them about what was going on. They were shocked to hear this about her, and almost didn't believe it at first. My brother had my back and confirmed with them that everything I said was true. They wanted to talk to her, but I told them not to. The next step was telling her parents. I debated about this for a while, as I did not know if it was my place to do so. After a while, I finally decided that it would be best. I knew that if I didn't tell them first, she would probably tell them awful lies about me. I set up a time to meet them at their place. I went over alone. After a while of just sitting there and having small talk, I finally built up the courage to tell them what was going on. The looks on their faces were unbelievable. They looked disgusted. They had never seen this side of their daughter. I was surprised that they didn't put any of the blame on me. They understood that I loved her and wanted to do whatever I could to make her happy. They even hugged me before I left. We were all in tears. They knew that divorcing her was the last thing I wanted to do, but understood that I had to at this point. This weekend, I spent most of my time talking to my lawyer and hanging out with my brother at home. On Saturday night, my wife texted me saying she was coming over. I replied, telling her she wasn't welcome right now. Despite my message, she showed up about 20 minutes later. At that point, I felt like I had no choice but to talk to her. She began by saying that she had been talking to her parents, and they were very angry with her, mentioning the possibility of us getting a divorce. I hoped they wouldn't tell her that, as I hadn't even broken the news to her yet. I hadn't planned on telling her in person. I had planned for it all to go through the lawyer. She criticized me, calling my actions childish and suggesting I wasn't a real man for talking to her parents before her. I explained that due to her manipulative behavior, I didn't feel comfortable talking to her directly. I reached out to her parents first to prevent her from lying to them and accusing me of everything. She kept asking if it was true that I was really filing for a divorce, and I confirmed that I was. She started sobbing uncontrollably and didn't really say anything for a good 15 minutes. She finally stopped and asked me why I was doing this and why I didn't give her a heads up. I explained that, throughout all of this, she has been super manipulative, treating me like I don't exist. I've been humiliated by her and the coworker. She promised she would stop if I took her back. I told her I couldn't. She finally left after that. The next morning, I woke up to a lot of texts and missed calls from her, mostly long messages and voicemails of her apologizing and explaining how much she loves me. It really hurt to listen to them because I was reminded of our past and how much I loved her. I was crying like crazy at this point, and it took everything in me not to respond back to her. I just kept reminding myself of what she has done to me in the last few weeks since she left that night. I received many texts from her friends, telling me that I need to take her back. They were cussing me out and telling me how wrong it was of me to go to her parents. They said that now they are the only people she has. This has all been so crazy. I can't believe how emotional the past few days have been. I can't believe that even her parents are on my side. I do feel bad for telling them first and making them turn on her, but I'm glad they're on my side. Her friends continue to attack me and send threats. I haven't heard from my wife since she sent the long texts and messages. I'm guessing that she is either staying with a coworker or her friends, as her parents are against her at the moment. I'm surprised I was able to stand up this strongly against her. I hope to continue to be able to do so. I think that this weekend was big for me. It showed me that I do have the strength to stand up to her and leave her.
Story 2.
I followed my wife to catch her affair on video, but was shocked by what I found when I snuck in. My name is Jonathan, and I've never experienced such intense anger in my life. The kind of anger I'm feeling is something no one should ever have to endure. I found myself wanting to confront two people at that very moment. So, why am I so furious? I'll explain it all. It began about 5 weeks ago when my wife started undergoing a noticeable transformation, like a chameleon right before my eyes. She started rejecting intimacy, including the physical aspects of a husband and wife's relationship. This immediately raised suspicions for me, as I once had a girlfriend who cheated on me, and that experience taught me some painful lessons. I never brought up my past experience with the first woman in my life to the now second woman. I doubt it would have made a difference anyway. During the second week of her transformation, I decided to dig deeper. I'm not the kind of guy who seeks help from a private investigator or someone else to solve my problems. No, I'm a hands-on guy who prefers to handle my own issues. Thank you very much. I followed her during her lunch break from work. When she parked at that motel and walked briskly to room 104, I knew she was cheating on me. Her job didn't require her to deal with customers outside of the workplace at all. In fact, she had no customer interaction because she worked in the record-keeping department. Discovering her infidelity was painful, but not nearly as painful as the taunts, insults, and slights she had already subjected me to. The man she was meeting was a coworker of sorts who worked in a different department. I had heard that he was quickly advancing in his career and climbing the corporate ladder rapidly. After observing them meeting 3 times in 2 weeks, I decided on my approach to this issue. I would confront it head-on. I'm too frugal to spend my hard-earned money on confirming what I already knew, so I waited. Now, knowing that just behind this door my wife was in the arms of another man, it was going to be a close call. I had to confront them, gather evidence, and in my current emotional state I could still pursue a legal claim for alienation of affection. Her employer would also face severe consequences for allowing this to happen. My guess was that Mr. On the Way Up was soon to become Mr. On the Way Out. I needed photographic evidence, and then I needed to serve my soon-to-be ex-wife with divorce papers. The locks on our house were being changed as I stood there, having paid the locksmith just before leaving home. I had reorganized all of our shared finances and divided them equally. I had also canceled all our credit cards. Over the past 2 weeks, I had taken various steps, and now the final upheaval was about to unfold. I can't say for sure how Simone will react. I believe she might feel relieved rather than upset, although guilt could weigh on her shortly. My attorney, who has extensive experience with divorces, assured me that the guilt would fade as soon as she hired her own lawyer. Do I love her, you may wonder? Well, right now I utterly and openly despise her, yet deep inside I'm engaged in a profound inner struggle, grappling with the idea that she truly loves me, and this is just a terrible mistake on her part, a lapse in judgment that we might be able to mend. However, I know logically that it won't happen. I cannot accept a wife who would betray my trust. There is not a shred of trust left in me for her. The love I still feel for her is the part that hasn't had time to come to terms with this sudden and complete transformation that has occurred so swiftly. Update: the motel manager handed me the room key. A $100 bill and a promise not to damage the place served as the price for obtaining the key. He's a decent guy, and I'm sure it's not his fault that my wife and her lover chose this location for their secret meetings. He also mentioned something about his ex-wife and how there were some similarities between us. Inserting the key, I quietly opened the door and stepped into the room, leaving it slightly ajar. I aimed the camera and entered the room completely. I love this digital camera, I thought to myself. I'm so grateful she gave it to me for my birthday 3 months ago. She was shouting at the guy to get off her, and he was furious trying to get up. I took several more pictures, capturing her in a compromising position. Simone was crying, attempting to cover up, while he persisted in his foolish actions. I secretly hoped he would make that choice, which made my next move feel quite natural. "Who are you? Get the heck out of here before I kick your behind," I declared. "I am her soon-to-be ex-husband. Whose behind is getting kicked is up for debate. I don't think you're going to kick mine." I moved to one side as he approached, setting the camera down and turning slightly to the right. I allowed him to come up on my left, releasing the camera. I began to turn rapidly, and in doing so, I swung my arm forcefully. My fist connected with his face, his feet lifted off the floor from the force of my anger, pain, and just a hint of fear. I was afraid I would lose control and hurt him, and he simply wasn't worth it. I must have been angrier than I realized. I bent over and checked for his pulse. There was a pulse, so I eased up. I heard Simone going on and on about something, and then I turned to face her. She suddenly fell silent, fear choking her voice. I could tell she had never seen me like this before, and I must have appeared significantly different from the man she had breakfast with this morning. "Well, enjoy this situation. He's all yours now. I want nothing to do with your cheating ways anymore." She sat there, tears streaming down her face, trembling and hugging herself. She couldn't meet my gaze, something I had noticed, happening more frequently lately. But now she knew that I knew. The game was over. She glanced at me, standing over her lover, and I saw her shudder. However, her eyes didn't linger on me for long. "Here are the standard divorce papers. I'm filing for divorce. The locks on the house have been changed. I've set up a bank account with your share of everything. You've been served and we're done. Thanks." I turned and left, hearing her plead with me as I walked out the door. "Wait, let me explain. Please, Jonathan, please." I kept moving. I couldn't let her see my eyes at that moment. They were filled with tears, and I knew that if I turned back, I might weaken and deviate from my plan. Too much had happened, and I had too many issues to reconsider. What once was is no more. When I got home, I found the locksmith patiently waiting. He had changed all 3 entry locks, and the garage door opener had been reprogrammed. I thanked him for the quick job and gave him a $20 tip. Sitting inside the house that used to be our home, I sat at the kitchen table, reflecting on the years we spent together. I couldn't fathom why Simone had changed, or why she suddenly saw me as less than what she once did. I couldn't find a single reason for her actions. What I did know was that our relationship had come to an end in the span of 5 weeks. The pain and words had transformed me into a different person. Unfortunately, Simone seemed to have missed this change as it occurred, just as I had overlooked the changes in her. The phone rang and I checked the caller ID to see that it was Simone's mom. I answered and she inquired, "John, what's going on?" Simone came over here in tears, saying that she's ruined your marriage. What's happened? I replied, "Well, Doris, it's like this. Simone will need to tell you the details, but in summary, I found her at a motel today and served her with divorce papers." Doris sounded perplexed. "Why, John, I don't understand this at all." I explained, "Look, I'm really sorry, Doris. You know how much I love you and Sam, and this whole situation is tough on all of us, but it has to be this way." Tears streamed down my cheeks now. I genuinely cared for Simone's parents. They had been incredibly kind to me throughout the years we were together. Hearing the pain and confusion in Doris's voice deeply affected me, and I was grateful that this conversation was happening over the phone. I didn't want them to witness my emotional state. Doris persisted, "John, can't you two work it out somehow?" I replied somberly, "I don't think so, Doris. This is a significant issue, one of those life-altering events that shatters everything." A solemn silence followed on the other end of the line as Doris tried to come to terms with this sudden and distressing news. I sympathized with her, especially since we had just had dinner with Doris and Sam the previous night, and Simone had acted affectionate in front of her. Parents. It had been surprising to me we had argued on the way to their house, and naturally I received the cold shoulder on the way back. However, while at Doris and Sam's, we had portrayed the perfect couple. I didn't want our fight to be visible, as I wanted to shield Sam from the hurt caused by his daughter's actions. Now it seemed I should have somehow forewarned them before taking the steps I had just taken. Sam's health wasn't in great shape, given the years of demanding jobs and his history of smoking, which had taken a toll on his well-being. Although Doris was in good health, she was always concerned about Sam. I felt regretful for not having given them some form of heads-up regarding this chaotic situation. Update: a few days later, my phone rang once more. Glancing at the caller ID, I saw that it was Simone's father. I answered the call and he began, "John, I need to discuss something concerning my daughter's unfortunate relationship. Simone revealed everything to her mother last night, and I was present too. Can we meet? I want to share with you the exact details of what happened to her." I had a genuine affection for Simone's parents, so I agreed to meet. Simone's father then recounted Simone's conversation with her mother when they spoke about me and my decision to serve her with divorce papers. Simone's mother had asked, "Well, Simone, I'm your mother, and John is like a son to me. I'm sorry to hear that John served you with divorce papers. However, you have to tell me what happened. It's not enough to mention that John found you in a motel room. I want to know all the details. Why were you in the motel and who were you with?" Simone explained, "Mom, Jonathan and I weren't getting along as well as we did when we first got married. He had been swamped with work, juggling several projects, and it was taking a toll on our personal life. We had discussed it since it was significantly affecting our relationship. I knew that in a few months, all his hard work would likely result in a promising promotion. Meanwhile, at my job, Greg discovered an error I had made with some employee records. It wasn't a major mistake, but it was a serious oversight on my part that could have jeopardized my upcoming promotion, raise, and career progress. Greg, being the kind of man he is, used this information and essentially blackmailed me into meeting him for lunch one day. This eventually led to closeness as a one-time arrangement to prevent the consequences of my mistake. While I wasn't thrilled about the situation, one thing that made me agree was the fact that Jonathan and I hadn't been getting along well, and our intimacy had dwindled over the last 6 months. It wasn't until that first meeting with Greg that I realized I had also been feeling like I was missing out on some life experiences that others had had. Jonathan had been my only partner, and I had never been with any other man. Our first encounter with Greg took place in his office during lunch. Everyone had left as usual, and I stayed behind. Greg had been waiting for me, and had even brought a small bottle of my favorite wine along with some cheese and crackers. Typically, our lunch breaks lasted an hour, and colleagues would go to local restaurants or street vendors to eat. I usually grabbed something quick from a street vendor's cart, and then found solitude at the park. That first day, nobody seemed to notice our absence. Greg turned out to be much kinder than the initial impression I had of him as a mean blackmailer. That first encounter was a sort of liberation for me. After that day, I found myself desiring it more, despite knowing it was wrong. Even though I still loved my husband Jonathan, Greg treated me differently, like his possession or something. With him, I could let go and be a completely different person. By the end of that lunch, I had engaged in activities with Greg that I had never done with my husband. We had just managed to straighten things out before our colleagues returned, and I left his office feeling less angry toward him than when it all began. Later that day, as I tasted his presence on my lips, I couldn't help but think about the next time. It was an unexpected thought that revealed my desire for Greg once more. Greg also wanted more than just one encounter. The next day, he approached me about it, and we once again engaged in an office affair. During those encounters, he began making negative comments about Jonathan. Over the next 2 weeks, a pattern emerged. While we were intimate, Greg would say hurtful things about Jonathan. He even suggested that Jonathan might be cheating on me, given the state of our relationship at home. I gradually adopted Greg's perspective over time. I started belittling and criticizing Jonathan to everyone except you and Dad. I was afraid that you and Dad would see right through me, so I pretended to be a loving wife when you and Dad were around. Just before the motel rendezvous, Jonathan and I were distant, and Greg and I had transitioned from an affair to a full-blown relationship. Greg suggested that using a motel would be a safer way for us to meet until we could figure out a better plan. His wife was becoming suspicious, and he believed someone at work might have noticed how often we were together. Given that we worked in different departments, we never discussed leaving our spouses. It never crossed our minds. We were simply meeting for physical satisfaction. I failed to recognize that with Jonathan, there was love, respect, and understanding. I abandoned those qualities for physical gratification, lust, and the way Greg dominated me. Jonathan respected me and would never take anything without my full consent. Greg, on the other hand, took whatever he wanted and ordered me around, devoid of any genuine love. His wife provided the emotional support he needed. Meanwhile, I let my emotional connection with Jonathan wither in favor of the excitement I experienced with Greg. Looking back, I now realize I made the biggest mistake of my life 10 weeks ago, and there's no way to go back and fix it. When Jonathan entered the room that day, it took me by surprise. I panicked, attempting to conceal myself and push Greg away. By the time Greg got up, I looked at John's face and saw a complete stranger. There was a look in his eyes that I had never witnessed before. Jonathan began taking pictures of us while Greg stepped off the bed, muttering something that I couldn't catch. Jonathan calmly placed the digital camera on the nearby table where he stood. What happened next left me stunned. Greg began advancing toward Jonathan, making threats. The next thing I witnessed was Greg soaring about 2 feet into the air before landing on his back. Jonathan's gaze met mine, and I couldn't bear to look at him any longer. I attempted to cover myself with the sheet, feeling frightened, embarrassed, and most of all, deeply ashamed. Jonathan called me a derogatory term and tossed some folded papers onto the bed. I overheard something about papers and divorce being served. I stared at the bed sheets, unsure if my husband was going to harm me too. I was scared, embarrassed, and overwhelmed by shame. Suddenly, Jonathan turned and started walking out, taking the camera from the table. I cried out to him, though I can't recall what I said. I just remember feeling that whatever I uttered must have sounded hollow. Later, I took a long shower without checking on Greg. I no longer cared whether he was alive or not. The motel manager came to check on the room. That's when I learned that Jonathan had purchased a key from him. The manager regarded me with disdain. He shared that he had caught his wife with another man in a room similar to the one Jonathan had rented, which was the real reason he had given Jonathan the key. He informed me that I had really messed up. He didn't need to tell me, I already knew. I had just thrown away the best thing I ever had in my life, all because I got entangled in my affair and foolishly believed I had something special. The following day, she arrived at work, and 3 men were waiting in my office: the company president, the human resources manager, and a man whom I assumed was the company lawyer. They inquired about how Greg and I had become involved, and I explained everything, holding nothing back. I could see the expressions on my colleagues' faces as they passed by the office, the same looks I had seen when I arrived that morning, and I knew I would be terminated by the end of the day. However, I was mistaken. First, the HR representative ensured that the initial encounter with Greg had been a form of blackmail. Then they made me sign some documents about Greg and me. I was out of the office and on the street before lunch. The company couldn't retain me, but due to Greg's initial blackmail, they had to provide me with severance pay. Apart from that, I was let go. Greg was escorted out of the building by security and handed over to the police. It turned out he had been involved in other illegal activities, which emerged during questioning. Greg was in serious legal trouble. Later, I discovered that Greg had been embezzling from the company in various small ways, such as manipulating receipts from business trips. In total, it amounted to enough to charge him with grand larceny. Greg's wife left him, taking their 3 children and returning to her parents' home in the East. Greg was in jail awaiting trial. Initially, I was asked to testify, but when I spoke with the district attorney, she realized that my testimony would likely do more harm than good. Consequently, they decided not to use me as a witness. Greg's lawyer inquired if I would testify in Greg's defense. Once I explained that I would testify about how Greg had initially coerced me into closeness and subsequently drove a wedge between my husband and me, even he concluded that I wouldn't be a valuable witness. "Mom, I honestly don't know how I managed to make such terrible decisions." Her mother replied, "Simone, you've committed one of the gravest mistakes possible. You've not only disappointed your parents and yourself, but you've also betrayed your husband. You, young lady, have completely ruined 2 marriages and shattered your husband's love. Your actions have sunk to the lowest of lows. I still love you because you're my daughter, but I've lost all respect for you." Sam informed me that Doris and he allowed Simone to move in with them. He sounded distraught, which brought tears to my eyes as well. They were good people, and I felt sorry that they had been dragged into this mess. Update: I understood that if I had warned her parents, Simone might have received a heads up, and I wouldn't have obtained the necessary pictures. Well, I didn't really need them for the court unless her lawyer became confrontational. In case of any confrontations, the pictures would be presented along with sworn testimony from 6 different individuals regarding their involvement. I hesitated to call it an affair. I'm uncertain if Simone was genuinely in love with this man, or if she initially participated willingly. Her father's statement suggested that Greg might have had some leverage over Simone at the beginning. My lawyer was making the most of the case against Simone's employer, which had already been filed while I was preparing to visit the motel room. He filed the case in court, and then, within 20 minutes, was on the phone with the company's lawyers, who were quite agitated. Naturally, they were also in denial, but my lawyer mentioned the sworn statements, and suddenly the company took a different stance. Based on what my lawyer told me, I knew that Simone, her lover, and possibly others involved were likely to be terminated from their jobs the next day, unless they could provide a reasonable excuse for their behavior. As for me, I knew that the case for alienation of affection against Greg was strong, given his employer's actions. We had sworn statements from 3 of his co-workers and 1 of hers about their clandestine activities at work. Some supervisors at the company had also speculated about them, but no one had confronted them or informed me. We had affidavits from the motel owner and a cleaning lady as well, making it a total of 6 witnesses of sorts, along with my pictures as concrete proof of the affair occurring during company hours. Their use of the motel had been an attempt to avoid the prying eyes of Keo workers, as Greg had realized they were becoming too conspicuous. He was also aware of the company's policies regarding workplace relationships and ethics, and my lawyer had gathered plenty of information on that front. I learned that Simone and the other man had been together for a little over 5 weeks by the time I sensed that something was amiss. So, Simone had been involved in this affair for just over 10 weeks in total, when I confronted them at the motel. The moment I found out about it 5 weeks earlier had been one of the most challenging times in my life. I'd experienced 3 of those moments so far, and by now I hoped I'd never have to go through another as long as I lived. Leaving the motel room that day left me feeling more numb than ever. Simone was still on the bed crying and Greg was still unconscious. The motel manager met me in the hallway, and I handed him the key. He offered some kind words of comfort, placing his hand on my shoulder. "It's tough right now, but it will get better. Move on, find yourself, and then find someone else. You'll be okay," he said. I knew it was going to be painful for a while, depending on how much I had loved her and cared for her. Thanks, I had already figured that out. Update: Simone didn't put up any fight during the divorce proceedings. It all went incredibly smoothly. My lawyer and hers, I believe, were surprised. She seemed completely resigned, and although I could see she was suffering, at least she didn't attempt to justify her actions. Once the divorce was finalized, the case against her former employer was wrapped up as well. They just wanted me to disappear, and they were willing to cover my lawyer fees, court costs, and offer a substantial sum to ensure that. Since then, Simone has been facing difficulties. She's alone, jobless, and living with parents who have been profoundly affected by her actions. Adding to her stress, the stigma of being an imposter lingers over her, and it will take a long time to shake it off. Nonetheless, she has the chance to start anew. I hope that eventually she can move forward and not carry this pain with her every hour. Perhaps she's learned a painful lesson and only time will reveal. Greg ended up in jail, and I relished that moment. Now he'd experience a different kind of intimacy, hopefully from the receiving end this time. I have no sympathy for him. To me, he's not a man, he's nothing. He had a wife and 3 kids. I met her once during the chaos of the divorce, and she was an attractive woman. What a foolish decision Greg made. He had everything and threw it all away in pursuit of some thrill he must have believed he couldn't get from her. I resigned from my job, which left my employers in shock. They made every effort to convince me to stay, but my personal issues were too overwhelming to continue working effectively. After doing what they could, they offered me a well-crafted letter of recommendation, which I accepted. I have since found a new job on the West Coast, and I relocated about a year ago. I met a wonderful young woman who's a real keeper. I still struggle with trust issues, but she has an ex-husband who cheated on her, so we share a common understanding. Story 2. I, a 33-year-old female, met my husband, a 36-year-old male, on a dating site, not expecting much due to my previous experiences on the platform, which had all been disappointing. Most of my encounters on the site had led to casual relationships purely based on physical attraction. However, when I met my husband, things were different because he had long-term plans and goals. As we talked more, I discovered that we had common goals, such as coming from small families, him having one brother and me being an only child. This similarity made us desire a large family to provide multiple sources of support for our children. We went on numerous dates and our conversations were constant. I felt heard, safe, and genuinely happy when I was with him. At this point, I had already stopped using the dating site and cut ties with the people I had been talking to. I was content and felt like a better version of myself when I was with him. He always encouraged me to improve. I was thrilled when he proposed, but as the wedding day approached, I began to feel increasingly nervous and had doubts about whether marriage was the right decision at this time. Even close friends told me I was too young to get married and that I might be wasting my youth on one person. On the other hand, my mother assured me that feeling nervous was normal and that my husband was a good person who would take care of me in all aspects of life. This confusion and pressure led me to reconnect with a person from the dating site whom I had previously engaged in a casual relationship. We met up, and one thing led to another, reigniting our passionate connection. I never discussed my wedding jitters with my husband. Instead, I continued my secret relationship with the guy from the dating site, even on the day of our wedding. A few months after our honeymoon, I discovered I was pregnant with our first child, who is now 10 years old, and we were thrilled. My husband was consistently involved in every aspect of our son's life, to the point where I sometimes felt left out. I assumed it might be postpartum symptoms, but instead of seeking professional help or discussing it with my husband, I turned to the person from the dating site for comfort, and our affair resumed. Over the next few years, we welcomed 2 more sons, currently 6 and 3 years old. Our family was a source of great happiness, and we were on track to achieve our dream of having a large family. The only thing missing was a baby girl. There were no girls in my husband's family, and I had no sisters, so having a daughter or 2 would feel like the final piece of the puzzle. My husband was particularly eager for a daughter, but I wasn't getting pregnant. As time went on, things became frustrating, and intimacy started to feel like an obligation rather than something enjoyable. It became stressful, and I had no one to confide in after my affair partner had to move to another state due to a job promotion. After attempting to conceive for almost a year without success, we decided to seek help from a specialist. Following a series of tests, the doctors confirmed that I was healthy and fertile, but they suggested testing my husband. To our surprise, it turned out that my husband was infertile, unable to father children. This revelation raised a concern I had never considered before, the possibility that our kids might not be biologically his. My husband remained silent for a while, clearly processing the implications of what I had just mentioned. The car ride back home was filled with silence, and I was too apprehensive to speak. When we arrived home, he still hadn't addressed the issue with me. Instead, he called my mom and asked her to come pick up the kids. Once they were gone, he confronted me about the identity of their biological father. I attempted to reassure him that they were his children since he had raised them, and I had no knowledge that they were not biologically his. I made it clear that I would never force him to raise kids who weren't his own, as this was news to me as well. However, he erupted in anger and we began arguing. He accused me of betraying his trust and jeopardizing his health, implying that I had been unfaithful. In my anger, I admitted to the affair, explaining that it was a way for me to cope with feeling trapped and stifled in our relationship, providing me with a sense of vitality and control. I know I'm not the only woman who has experienced these feelings before. Clearly, my husband wants a divorce and intends to pursue paternity tests, but I don't want to break up our happy family. I never would have continued the affair if I had known my husband was infertile and that our children could never be his. I feel like I've completely messed up my life and my children's lives by attempting to have another child. I understand that I've acted terribly, but my children are innocent in all of this, and they deserve a family. They deserve a father. Edit. I married my husband because I genuinely loved him, not solely for the security he provided. The other man was the only other person I was involved with, as I believed having multiple partners would be messy. I didn't love him the way I loved my husband. I was simply attracted to him, and our relationship was purely physical. He was aware that I had a husband, and we had clear boundaries. We didn't want anything more from each other. I never considered that my children could belong to anyone other than my husband, as we almost always used protection. And I couldn't imagine anyone else being the father of my kids aside from my husband. My husband is proceeding with the divorce process, and we're already in the midst of it. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to listen to my pleas. When I brought up the children and how this would affect them, he insisted on having custody as well. He mentioned that he had financially supported 3 children who aren't biologically his, and he'll likely be ordered to pay child support. So he intends to ensure he gets his money's worth and sees them as his retirement plan. This deeply upset me, and I cried, but he didn't show any sympathy. My friends tell me that these are the consequences of not listening to their advice and wasting my youth on one man. I acknowledge that I betrayed him and admit my wrongdoing, but his attempt to take the kids is where I draw the line. I still love him, and his desire to take my kids away is far worse than what I did. Things have escalated rapidly, and it seems like we've reached a point of no return. Initially, we planned to settle our divorce out of court, but he refuses to provide alimony and constantly belittles me whenever we're together. He claims he won't pay alimony, emphasizing that I was the one who betrayed our marriage, and he believes that our sons shouldn't be raised in an environment with someone he considers promiscuous. His sons? No, they are my sons. He wants to take my children away from me, and he has even managed to turn our oldest son against me. Now, my eldest son gives me an attitude that I've never seen before. While we never had the closest relationship, he always recognized me as his mother. He insisted on living with his father, and when the judge granted me full custody, considering I'm their biological mother and they have no biological connection to their dad, he started throwing tantrums. I suspect my ex-husband has influenced him against me. My life is currently spiraling downward, and I am constantly stressed and frustrated. This subreddit is the only place where I feel treated like a human being. I haven't received the first alimony payment yet, and my son continues to throw tantrums, demanding to be with his dad. I'm at my wit's end. I managed to keep the house for the sake of the kids, but it's becoming increasingly challenging to cover all the expenses since I don't have the income of a 2-earner household. I filed for child support since he is the one who raised them, and the only father they've known. Initially, he didn't object and agreed to it, but now he's going back to court for custody. However, I've insisted that I don't have the financial means for another legal battle. I can't help but feel like a failure, having to depend on him again, and at the same time, I miss what we once had.
Story 3.
I initially encountered Ramona during my college years. At that time, she had a robust build, large glasses, and struggled with skin issues. Her major was in art, and her fashion sense was unconventional, reflecting her unique style. Regrettably, her distinctive flair didn't resonate as attractive or appealing to most guys, myself included. Despite pursuing different majors, she in art and myself in production technology, we found ourselves enrolled in the same computer graphics design classes due to shared program requirements. She needed the class for her diploma, while I required it as a prerequisite for AutoKD. Assigned to collaborate on a group project, we realized we hadn't interacted much before, despite sharing some classes. Right from the outset, it was evident we were almost polar opposites. While I frequented the track and hovered around the popular crowd, Ramona smoked and gravitated towards the fringe of the avant-garde, the beatniks, and the artistic circles. My dating circle mainly consisted of level 2 cheerleaders and jocks, whereas Ramona was often relegated to the role of the larger friend or the second-choice girlfriend among the more conventionally beautiful or promiscuous art students. While working on our project, we found ourselves spending a considerable amount of time together. Human nature compelled me to glance at her, prompting her, I assume, to reciprocate. One evening, our conversation extended beyond project matters and delved into more personal topics. When my next girlfriend arrived to pick me up, I felt a twinge of sadness at leaving Ramona, and it seemed she felt similarly. The following day, in computer class, Ramona exhibited a frosty demeanor towards me. "What did I do now?" I inquired. "You're an absolute idiot," she retorted, her voice verging on tears. Sensing the need for privacy, I took her hand and ushered her out of the lab to a nearby park bench. After fetching refreshments, we resumed our discussion in a more comfortable setting, free from any potential disruptions. "Why do you think I'm a prick?" I queried with a smile. "Because you are," she replied, wiping away tears. Despite lacking an artistic soul, I had hoped you were different, she added. As our conversation progressed, I reflected on her words. And then you with that woman, she interjected. Are you upset I went on a date? I asked incredulously. No way, she snapped. It's just that you're all the same. You're not interested in a meaningful connection with a woman who genuinely cares for you and loves you. You just want superficial relations with some buxom girl. Without intelligence, she remarked sharply. Well, I responded calmly. Well-endowed women have the intelligence to leverage their assets, whether in dating, relationships, or simply in matters of closeness. She regarded me skeptically and inquired, What exactly are you implying? Irritated, I retorted, They communicate. They take actions to express their interest to the guy. She remained speechless, her fists clenched in frustration, visibly seething with anger. It seemed as if steam would soon billow from her ears, prompting me to seek clarity and understand where we stood. With a decisive gesture, I reached over and removed her cumbersome glasses, recognizing they obstructed her beauty. Then I kissed her, not a mere peck, but a fervent, passionate embrace. Later, I learned it was her first kiss with a non-relative. That initial kiss led to more carnal ones as she relaxed, parting her lips and our tongues intertwined in a sensual dance. Embracing her tightly, we shared lingering kisses on a park bench. The ensuing weeks were a whirlwind of activity. We completed our project, earning an A, and embarked on a romantic relationship. Ramona opted for contact lenses, visited a dermatologist, and adopted a slightly more conventional wardrobe. I never requested she abandon her bohemian style, but as our outings became more frequent, she required additional attire. You know how women are. She invited me to accompany her on a shopping trip and sought my opinion. I noted that jeans were a popular choice, even among artists. However, she expressed feeling too large for pants. I reassured her, praising her curves and likening her to the voluptuous models depicted by the artist Rubens. Encouraged, she purchased jeans and looked fantastic in them. Yet I suggested her tops and sweatshirts didn't quite complement her jeans or skirts. She accused me of only being interested in her chest. I jokingly admitted she was right, but emphasized they were mine, and she wore them for my benefit. Being carnal with Ramona felt akin to being with a fairy tale princess. Though not wild, it held a special quality. As her first partner, I endeavored to make it enjoyable and memorable for her. Over time, her interest in closeness grew, and she even began to request it. While we never delved into extreme kinks, I cherished every moment because of my deep love for her. Some weeks later, she gazed at her reflection and remarked, feeling like a larger version of the type of woman she despised. I reassured her, affirming she was my girlfriend regardless of appearances. We found immense happiness together and eventually became engaged. Following graduation, I pursued a career at an automotive design firm, while Ramona found her calling doing layouts for an art magazine. My family adored Ramona and embraced her warmly. On the other hand, Ramona's family was limited to her mom and sister, to say the least. I didn't particularly care for them. Once, at our engagement celebration, I overheard her sister suggesting to someone that I was too conventional and might stifle Ramona's artistic vision. Despite Ramona appearing radiant and joyous, her mom whispered to her sister that she believed our marriage was due to a pregnancy and wouldn't last. However, over time, we proved them both wrong. We were deeply content and genuinely loved each other. At our 7th anniversary gathering, her mom began hinting about becoming a grandmother. Since Ramona and I were her only hope for grandchildren, as her sister was unable, Ramona quickly assured her we were trying. Despite our efforts over several years, we faced disappointment. Ramona's mom, Maddie, took it upon herself to schedule us appointments at a fertility clinic, seemingly presuming the issue was with me. I attended the appointment, underwent tests, and provided samples, only to discover everything was normal on my end. Maddie, upon hearing the news, humorously suggested we practice more until our work was finished so she could become a grandmother while still young. However, Ramona's results painted a different picture, altering our lives indefinitely. We learned she had various reproductive health issues, making conceiving naturally extremely unlikely, if not improbable. That evening, I held her tightly as she wept herself to sleep. I reassured her that adoption or exploring available treatments were viable options for us. Deep down, I harbored resentment towards her mother for escalating the situation to such an extent. Tearfully, she told me, "If you want a divorce, you can have it. I'll never leave you unless you push me away." Addressing Ramona, I relayed her mother's accusation that she might cheat on me to conceive. "I'll never betray you, Mona. You mean everything to me," I assured her. Meeting her gaze, she questioned, Why stay with a woman who's unable to have children? Ensuring she caught every nuance of my sincerity, I replied, "Because I love you more than anything in this world, and losing you would devastate me." She seemed to calm down a bit and eventually drifted off to sleep. But honestly, those days are now a blur, and I struggle to recall all the details. 2 days later, we received a call from the clinic summoning us for an appointment. During the consultation, the doctor revealed she had referred Ramona's tests to a specialist. Our shock intensified upon discovering Ramona was battling an aggressive form of cancer in its early stages. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. This explained her constant fatigue at 25, the unexplained body soreness, and frequent mood swings and irritability. The revelation terrified me. Fortunately, we caught it early enough to have a favorable prognosis for her recovery. The doctor directed us to a specialized oncology center and arranged an appointment for the following day. Ramona underwent an extensive battery of tests, marking the beginning of her challenging journey. I took a leave of absence and remained by Ramona's side throughout her ordeal. I stayed beside her during every test, offering support and encouragement as we awaited results. In the following weeks, Ramona underwent lymph node surgery and commenced radiation therapy. I occupied the family suite at the cancer center to be close to her. I greeted her each morning, stayed by her side all day, and even obtained permission to stay overnight until she drifted off to sleep. Occasionally, her mother and sister visited, displaying a chilly demeanor towards me, perhaps harboring the misguided notion that I was somehow responsible for Ramona's illness. However, the radiation therapy proved ineffective and began injuring healthy tissue alongside the tumors. Consequently, we opted for chemotherapy. Ramona experienced a significant weight loss due to radiation, and chemotherapy threatened to cause hair loss. The hospital nurses were incredibly supportive, often going beyond their duties to assist me in caring for Ramona. One nurse, Kelly, was particularly invaluable. With her striking red hair, green eyes, and tall, slender frame, she exuded warmth and kindness. Each morning, Kelly greeted me with a smile or a joke, offering a comforting embrace or a listening ear whenever I needed it most, helping me maintain a positive outlook. The majority of nurses in the oncology unit had shifts lasting 10 hours with 3 days off. However, Kelly worked from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. She was present when I left Ramona at night and also when I returned at 6 a.m. the next day. In my experience, she was consistently cheerful, particularly in my presence. The only instance I recall her becoming upset was during a conversation with Ramona's mother, Maddie. Maddie remarked that I might likely leave her daughter now that she was sick. Kelly reacted fiercely, threatening to physically intervene. "This environment is utterly disheartening," Kelly expressed. "A large number of our patients receive minimal visitors, as their loved ones are hesitant to visit due to concerns of contagion," she elaborated. She emphasized my constant presence and support for Ramona during difficult times, holding the vomit bucket and assisting her to the restroom. "Were you here?" she asked pointedly, acknowledging my dedication. "He assists her when she needs to use the restroom," Kelly commented. "Were you around when she experienced hair loss?" "He shaved his head to match hers," she chuckled, recalling his shiny scalp. "Were you present during that time?" she inquired with irritation. "He administers sponge baths to help her maintain dignity," she noted. "Were you present then?" she questioned again. "He has devoted all his vacation and sick leave to her. Her health insurance doesn't cover the treatment, so he's deeply in debt for your daughter," she asserted. "And throughout it all, he has been by her side every single day, holding her hand and reassuring her of his love," she snapped, pointing a finger at Maddie's face. I wish I had witnessed it myself, but hearing about it later brought a slight smile to my face. But what truly mattered to me was Ramona's well-being. Several nurses shared the incident with me, all equally enraged at Maddie. I noticed Maddie became noticeably less aloof towards me afterward. In fact, she even reached out and patted me on the shoulder as I held Ramona's hand during her afternoon nap. The chemotherapy took a toll on Ramona, leaving her weakened but cancer-free. Her hair began to grow back, and we adopted a new diet to help her regain strength. She underwent multiple plastic surgeries to remove excess skin from her weight loss. Ramona emerged as a new woman, 80 pounds lighter with clear skin, contact lenses replacing her glasses, and her hair restored. People who knew her couldn't help but take a second glance. Though not as striking as Kelly, she was the best version of herself, and my love for her remained unwavering. I returned to work, putting in extra hours to cover the medical expenses we incurred. Ramona couldn't work for a while. Our bed life, always fulfilling, intensified as Ramona expressed gratitude for my support during her illness. She began casually dating women from her previous job while I was at work. It seemed like a way for her to socialize more, as she was never very outgoing apart from me. Perhaps it was a form of post-cancer affirmation, though I didn't take it too seriously. Unbeknownst to me, my marriage was in jeopardy. Over the following weeks, Ramona started returning home later and often appeared intoxicated. "I've never had so much fun," she remarked. I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt, working 12 to 16-hour days to cover her medical expenses while she enjoyed herself without me. Her attire became increasingly revealing, prompting my inquiry. She explained she wanted to flaunt her newfound body, claiming it was just for fun. I couldn't help but wonder when it became necessary for her to seek validation from others. During that time, I pondered our marriage, sensing something was amiss. Despite my apprehensions, I hesitated to confront the truth, as Ramona had become my entire world. Our shared experiences, particularly battling cancer, had deepened our bond significantly. Unbeknownst to me, my dedication had caught the attention of my company's owners, resulting in a substantial raise, promotion, and bonus. I saw this as an opportunity to plan a vacation with Ramona, hoping it would rekindle our relationship. Rather than immediately sharing the good news with Ramona, I decided to surprise her with a small family celebration for her upcoming birthday, hoping to discuss the idea of relocating together to rejuvenate our marriage. However, events unfolded differently, shattering my heart and our marriage. During a routine checkup at the hospital, Ramona encountered Kelly, whom she never liked due to her beauty and perceived threat. That overweight woman. Even with Ramona's weight loss, she felt inferior to Kelly standing beside her. "Hey, Ramona," Kelly greeted. "It's strange seeing you without your lovely husband," she remarked. "What do you mean? I'm not without him," Ramona clarified. "He's just at work. And why are you asking about him anyway?" "I didn't mean anything by it. You're simply fortunate to have someone who loves you so deeply," Kelly assured her. "Most guys out there are only interested in their own pleasure and eventually drift away. If only someone looked at me the way your husband looks at you," Kelly began, before being cut off. "It doesn't matter," Ramona interjected. Aware that I would be occupied with work all day again, Ramona sought solace in returning to the bar she had visited the previous night. She could probably enjoy a drink and be back home before I arrived. Upon entering the bar, Ramona was greeted by someone's embrace. "Oh my God, Ramona, it's been ages!" exclaimed Kathleen Kinnison, one of Ramona's former college acquaintances. "What's been going on with you lately? You've lost quite a bit of weight." "I almost didn't recognize you," remarked Kathleen. "How's your husband doing?" she inquired. "Hey, Kat," Ramona responded. "Just hanging out and having a good time." They approached a table and were soon joined by a group of men. Ramona got up to dance with one of them, becoming so engrossed that she failed to notice the door opening. Everyone in the bar noticed when Kelly walked in. Ramona was too absorbed in dancing to notice her, but Kelly observed her actions and companions. Kelly ordered a sandwich from the grill, returning to work with a newfound idea. In the following days, I maintained my usual workload while also planning Ramona's surprise party. I invited her mother, sister, and several friends, purchased gifts, and hoped the celebration and trip would rekindle our relationship. I was pleasantly surprised when my mother-in-law offered to assist me with decorating the apartment for the party. During Ramona's hospitalization, we grew closer, and while she may not have harbored romantic feelings for me, she respected my love for her daughter and accepted me. Over the subsequent days, I noticed a recurring pattern. Ramona consistently left and returned home late, and our once vibrant bed life dwindled. It was difficult to recall the last time we had been carnal. Women persistently bothered me as if they sensed my need for relief. One evening upon returning from work, the phone rang. "Hey, Brad, it's Kelly," she said. "Hi, Kelly. Any news on Ramona's test results?" I inquired. "Not until tomorrow, but there's something important I need to discuss with you," she said urgently. "Could we meet somewhere? It won't take long." "How about the park across from the hospital?" I suggested. Kelly considered it and agreed. "I can be there in 20 minutes if that works for you. See you there," I confirmed. Kelly believed the park was an ideal meeting spot. During Ramona's hospitalization, she and Brad frequented it to lift his spirits, sharing impromptu dinners while Ramona underwent procedures he couldn't attend. It held happy memories for them, and Kelly didn't want to taint that. Sitting on a small bench in the park beside Kelly, I greeted her with a smile. "Am I behind on payments? Is Ramona sick again?" I inquired. "Yes, she's unwell, but it's not cancer," Kelly revealed. In the ensuing minutes, Kelly recounted the places she had spotted my wife recently, detailing her actions and company. "I don't have evidence, but it seems she's being unfaithful," she disclosed. "Kelly, you're a great nurse, and I thought you were a good person too. Ramona would never do that." "She loves me," I asserted, though my conviction wavered. "I'm sorry to have to say this, but you need to be cautious," Kelly advised. "I can't believe she'd betray you like this," I retorted. "You're basing this on vague suspicions, no evidence. Perhaps it's best for you to focus on your own affairs." I rose to depart, but Kelly seized my hand. Gently, she lifted her hand and grazed my cheek. I found myself frozen in place, my anger dissipating. "I hope I'm mistaken for your sake," Kelly murmured softly. "It pains me to think you're enduring such agony for someone who isn't worth it." Her touch sent a shiver down my spine. "I'll be there for you when you need a friend," she assured, slipping a business card into my hand before leaving. I tucked the card into my pocket, watching as Kelly walked away. It had been a while since Ramona and I had been carnal, yet watching Kelly walk away, I felt a surge of desire. Everything unfolded better than expected. Kelly believed that if Brad discovered the truth too late, the pain would be worse. It was preferable to endure a few small blows rather than one devastating blow. Though she would never intentionally damage Brad, he needed to know about his unfaithful wife. Kelly couldn't pinpoint when her feelings for Brad had blossomed. It no longer mattered. Perhaps it was during those moments when she witnessed his unwavering dedication, whether caring for Ramona or enduring her dismissive treatment after she started to recover, treating him more like a servant than a devoted husband who had sacrificed everything to be by her side for months. Kelly was aware of her beauty, a fact reiterated throughout her life. Despite her history with numerous men, none had bestowed upon her the same love and tenderness Brad showered upon Ramona. She couldn't fathom anything she wouldn't sacrifice to have such affection in her life. She felt prepared for the next phase of her plan. Returning home 2 nights later, I felt a surge of anticipation. The modest party was intended to ignite the romantic spark with Ramona anew. As I paid closer attention to our interactions in recent days, I noticed her growing distance and increased drinks consumption. As I eventually drifted off to sleep, she had yet to return. Upon awakening, she was already asleep beside me, smiling as she rolled over. Despite knowing she was likely out drinking and partying, it was quintessentially Ramona. Initially averse to parties when we first met, she now sought to explore experiences she had once shunned, perhaps as a celebration of her triumph over cancer. While I simply wished for her to celebrate alongside me, I couldn't shake the feeling of my own selfishness. At 6:30, Ramona's mother, Maddie, arrived with her second daughter, Ravana. They swiftly began decorating the house, aware that Ramona could arrive at any moment. Only 6 individuals were invited as I aimed for a cozy gathering with close friends. By 9 p.m., guests were already wondering about Ramona's absence, prompting some to leave their gifts and depart. By 11 p.m., only Maddie, Ravana, and I remained. I made a 4th attempt to reach Ramona on her cell phone. She returned the call half an hour later. "Hey, love, I'll be heading home soon." Ramona's voice sounded breathless and intoxicated. "Where are you?" I inquired. "Mom suggested grabbing a drink, and I opted to join her rather than returning home." "We lost track of time," she explained. "I ended up tagging along with her and my disagreeable sister because they still harbor some dislike toward you, and I didn't want their negativity to spoil whatever surprise you had planned," she added. In the background, a male voice urged her to return promptly for some fun. "We'll reunite soon, and you can unveil your surprise," she reassured. "Is it a big surprise?" she queried. "Somewhat," I responded softly. For a while, silence lingered. Then Maddie turned her gaze toward me, noticing my struggle to hold back tears. I felt stunned, as if my world had crumbled, unsure of how to react. "That's not entirely accurate," Maddie began. "Initially, I may have had doubts about your suitability for Ramona, but my perspective has shifted," she continued. "What a nerve," Ravana interjected. "Thank you both for coming," I said, composing myself. "I'll tidy up and stow away Ramona's gifts," I assured them. "She'll likely return soon. You're welcome to stay, though I'm not sure witnessing her homecoming will serve any purpose," I added. "Why not?" Ravana inquired. "As her sister, I'd relish seeing her reaction when she's confronted with her lie. She endured a harrowing battle with cancer," I explained. "We don't fully understand its impact. All we can do is support her and hope for the best," I concluded softly. Maddie and Ravana departed, shaking their heads. I gathered clothes and personal items from the closet, swiftly packing to minimize return trips. Leaving a note for Ramona on the kitchen table, I ensured I had everything I needed to stay away for a while. The following day, I began seeking a divorce lawyer during work breaks, perusing online ads without making any calls. My colleagues assumed I was battling a cold or flu as I maintained a distant demeanor. Despite Ramona's attempts to contact me, I remained unresponsive, adhering to this routine for 3 consecutive days. Work, return to the motel room, sleep, and repeat. On the 3rd day, Kelly perched on the hood of my car as I exited the building, her eyes brimming with tears, leaving me perplexed.
"Why didn't you call me?"
she demanded, her voice edged with frustration. I remained silent, meeting her gaze, and the emotional barrier I'd constructed shattered, tears streaming down my face. "Everything you warned me about turned out to be true," I confessed softly. Kelly leaped off the car, enveloping me in a hug. Despite my turmoil, I couldn't ignore the inappropriate surge of arousal as her chest pressed against mine.
"I never intended to cause you pain. If you can, please forgive me," she pleaded.
Meanwhile, Ramona surveyed her cluttered apartment, her head throbbing with pain.
"What day is it?"
she groaned. "Brad needs to tidy up this mess when he gets back.
"Why isn't he home yet? Who's knocking?"
Rising from her seat, she limped undressed to the door, peering through the peephole. "Phew, it's just Mom," she muttered, hastily donning a robe and opening the door. "Sorry for the chaos, Mom," she apologized. "Brad seems to vanish into thin air at work," she added. "Ramona, where were you? What were you up to?" Maddie inquired, her tone accusatory. "Or, judging by your appearance, who were you engaging in illicit activities with?" she continued. "Mom, what on earth are you talking about?" Ramona snapped. "Ramona, why do you have hickeys on your neck?" Maddie pressed. "Oh, darn it, Brad better not see this," Ramona muttered.
"Mom, could you fetch me some coffee? My head is pounding,"
she requested. Reluctantly, Maddie retreated to the kitchen to prepare coffee.
"So, how did you cover up your deception that night?"
Maddie inquired. "What deception?" Mom questioned Ramona. "The falsehoods you told your husband on your birthday," Maddie clarified. "Ramona, when you claimed you were with me and your sister, we were right here beside him at that moment," Maddie reminded her. Ramona's eyes widened. "I need to think of something to say before he returns," she realized. "You have to help me devise a plan, Mom." "Why should I?" Maddie challenged. "Mom, I acknowledge that I made some mistakes," Ramona admitted. "But it was all just for fun. I wanted to experience things I never could when I was younger," she explained. "Back then, I was overweight, Mom. Always the chubby friend, never the desired one," she recounted. "Then I met Brad and everything changed," she continued. "I grew more confident. I started dressing better because to him, I was the attractive one. But to him, I was simply an attractive woman, solely because he loves me. But now that I've shed the weight, I'm attracting the attention of more guys, which is invigorating," she confessed. "Now I can flirt with them a bit and discard them whenever I please. Now I have options, and it's exhilarating," she admitted. "It's not serious. I would never actually leave Brad because I love him. I'm just having a bit of fun," she assured. "But you yourself said, Mom, that he's average and dull, and Brad will never find out anyway," she reasoned. "He's always working anyway," she added. "He should join the game. Otherwise, he risks losing me, just like now. He ought to be home by now," she concluded. "That's probably accurate," Maddie murmured softly. She approached Ramona and handed her the note discovered in the kitchen. "Dear Ramona, I'm genuinely happy to see you enjoying yourself. After what you've endured, you deserve it. Beating cancer is a feat few achieve. But you entered the battle and emerged victorious. You didn't just overcome it, you annihilated it. In fact, you've emerged as an even stronger, more radiant individual than before. Right from the start, I recognized your uniqueness and fell deeply in love with you. Now you possess the confidence to step out and reveal to the world just how extraordinary you are and how immense your heart is. You deserve that too. Now I comprehend that there's simply no place for me in your life or your heart. After all, you won my heart long ago, and you deserve to continue moving forward. I hope you receive this note tonight and reach out so we can discuss our next steps, if there are any. If I don't hear from you tonight, I'll assume the worst and proceed with filing for divorce to grant you freedom from me. You can keep the apartment because I still won't be able to return there. There are too many memories. I simply hope your next partner is more deserving of you than I am. I gave it my all, did everything I could for you. Obviously, I fell short somewhere, and you deserve better. I'll always cherish you, Brad." After reading the letter, Ramona collapsed on the floor, sobbing. Maddie glanced at her daughter and reflected, "What a foolish daughter I've raised." Across town, Kelly escorted Brad to her home. She circled the car, opening the door and gently tugged his limp arms to help him out. Guiding him to her door, she ushered him inside and settled him onto the sofa. She initiated a conversation with him, recognizing that he had been operating on autopilot for days, merely going through the motions. But now, he had hit rock bottom. Despite his outward appearance, she believed he possessed much greater strength than he realized. "I'm going to assist him in breaking free from this deceitful woman." Kelly understood that now wasn't the time to disclose any remaining details about Ramona to him. A detective agency had been monitoring Brad and Ramona for the past week. She knew the precise date and time he had left her, but decided to allow him a few days before confronting him. Ramona had engaged in far more than Brad was aware of, and Kelly wasn't certain if his delicate mental state could withstand it. Leaving Brad seated on the couch, she changed into more comfortable attire and prepared dinner consisting of steaks and salad. While she enjoyed her meal, Brad pushed his food around his plate contemplatively. Throughout the entire meal, neither of them uttered a single word. After dinner, Kelly deliberately turned off Brad's cell phone, ensuring there were no messages yet. This indicated that Ramona was still too intoxicated to realize his absence, which was a positive sign. Kelly then called the hospital, informing them she would be absent for personal reasons, and encouraged Brad to do the same. Despite Brad's reluctance due to financial obligations, Kelly insisted, and eventually he agreed to take 2 days off. Kelly provided him with a blanket and settled him on the couch, embracing him like a child and planting a kiss on his forehead. "If you need me, I'm here," she assured him, gesturing toward her bedroom upstairs. Meanwhile, that evening, Ramona attempted to reach Brad's cell phone 20 times, frustrated by his lack of response. She desperately needed to explain herself, emphasizing that she didn't desire a divorce and couldn't bear to live without him. Brad was her pillar of strength, her unwavering support. Despite her recent actions, she maintained that her marriage was paramount. Brad's love had been steadfast, even during her times of struggle when she was overweight and overlooked by others. Recalling their joint battle against cancer, she realized their victory was a collective effort. She reminisced about countless memories with Brad, including the day he shaved his head in solidarity with her. Feeling foolish, she attempted to reach him again, this time calling his workplace. To her surprise, she learned that Brad had taken a couple of days off and had been assigned a new office since his recent promotion. Ramona felt a pang of guilt, realizing that Brad's return might not unfold as she had anticipated. Until then, she had assumed he was simply upset and sulking. She could resolve his anger by simply calling him and asking him to return home. Once he arrived, a brief conversation and closeness would mend everything. She envisioned spending the remainder of their lives together, making amends to him. Reflecting on the past few hours, she realized that her recent indulgence wasn't worth jeopardizing her relationship with Brad. She had initially been level-headed. How had she regressed into the type of foolish girl she had disdained in college? Initially seeking a bit of enjoyment and self-care, she now recognized her lack of control over the situation. Surrendering to the allure of unfamiliar men offered only an illusion of control, at the expense of what she should have reserved for Brad. There was no love involved, only hollow, intoxicated encounters. Now, she was left to ponder the extent of Brad's knowledge and what forgiveness he might require. Conversely, she doubted she could ever forgive herself for her actions. She had become the very thing she despised most. Kelly carefully and gradually assisted Brad. They retrieved his belongings from the hotel and purchased what he needed. At Kelly's urging, they relocated his possessions to a guest room in her home. She encouraged him to speak, initially coaxing out only a few words, but soon engaging in earnest conversation. However, the topic of Ramona remained untouched. As their 2-day respite concluded and both had to resume work, she returned his cell phone to him. Observing silently, she watched as he sifted through his messages. Despite over 100 calls from Ramona, he deleted them all without listening. His jaw clenched, indicating a newfound resolve, and she believed he would eventually be all right. Upon returning to work, Brad felt somewhat improved, though his senses remained unsettled. Some coworkers had noticed Kelly picking him up recently, sparking a wave of gossip. "So, Brad, who was behind the wheel of that red Mustang?" queried his friend Dave. "Brad's got a supermodel by his side," another colleague chimed in. Brad grinned but stayed silent. Undoubtedly, Kelly possessed striking beauty, perhaps even surpassing Ramona's. Did he genuinely believe that? Brad's cheerful demeanor soured when someone insinuated he was having an affair with a mysterious redhead, oblivious to Ramona's infidelity. All seemed well until it was time to depart for home. A security guard barged into Brad's office, urgently summoning him to the parking lot. Brad feared his car had been damaged. He was unprepared for the chaos that awaited. Shrill cries pierced the air before he reached the lot.
"What the hell are you doing on my husband's car, you homewrecker?"
Ramona's voice echoed. "You abandoned him with your disappearing act," Kelly retorted sharply. "What are you even talking about?" Ramona shot back. "You vanished into drinks and betrayed him," Kelly spat. Guards intervened to keep the women apart, but a crowd had already gathered. Brad approached Kelly, guiding her to the Mustang. He quietly instructed her to head home and assured he would follow shortly. Then, he directed the guards to detain Ramona for at least 10 minutes before driving off after Kelly. As he departed, Brad witnessed Ramona's anguished cries. Despite his deepening love for her, anger now welled within him.
"Brad, we need to talk," her voice echoed. "We'll figure it out. You still care for me. I can see it," she insisted.
Regrettably, she wasn't entirely wrong. With tears streaming down his face, Brad walked away. Later, at Kelly's residence, Brad was prepared to confront the situation. "What's your plan, Brad?" Kelly inquired. "I suppose I need clarity about my marriage," Brad responded. "Are you certain you want to know?" Kelly questioned. "Absolutely," Brad affirmed. "I'm not so sure," Kelly admitted. Retrieving a large envelope from her office, she placed it on the table. "Everything you need is in here, but I urge you not to open it," she cautioned. "What's inside?" Brad inquired. "When I first came to you about her, you said I lacked proof," Kelly recounted. "And you were correct. Despite what I witnessed, I struggled to accept it. Just like when it happened to me," Kelly confessed. "Anticipating your need for evidence, I arranged for a private investigator to tail her. Fortunately, my cousin owed me a favor, so it didn't cost me a dime. I've stitched it up several times. There's a stack of photos, audio clips, receipts, reports, and even footage. But trust me, if there's any love left for her in your heart, you're better off not seeing this," Kelly advised. "By now you understand the evidence is concrete, confirming her breach of marital vows. Yet viewing it will only inflict more pain," she cautioned. "Once you witness it firsthand, it'll haunt you for a long while," she added. "You're starting to grasp this. I know it'll take time to move on from her, but you're beginning to see reason," she said optimistically. "This file can only drag you back. However, do what you deem necessary," she concluded. "What should we have for dinner?" Kelly inquired, heading toward the kitchen. Brad reached for the folder and extracted the initial photo, a clear depiction of Ramona lying on a table in what seemed to be a bar, her dress hitched up to her waist. Up to this point, there were at least 3 men present. Brad found his split from Ramona excruciating, yet the photograph dealt a devastating blow. He struggled to focus or even breathe, returning the photo to its folder and hurling it across the room. Collapsing onto Kelly's couch, he shut his eyes, feeling her embrace. For the remainder of the night, they sat in silence. The following morning, claiming illness, they visited a divorce attorney Kelly recommended. "I'll aim to expedite this with minimal pain," assured Sherry, Brad's new attorney. "You lack children and own scarce assets, except for her medical expenses. I'll cover those," Brad offered. "Why?" inquired Sherry. "Given your substantial debt due to her," she elaborated. "And her repayment, acting in such a manner? Well, you know," she added. "Regardless, this should be straightforward. If she contests, we'll threaten to expose the file," Sherry proposed. "The paperwork will be ready within days." Over the ensuing days, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Ramona received the divorce papers and promptly tore them apart. Not only did she refuse to sign or even read them, but she also declined to seek legal counsel. She informed Sherry that she would vehemently contest the divorce and vowed it would never happen. Instead, she proposed a legal separation, suggesting that after a year of mutual agreement, divorce proceedings could commence. In return, she requested marriage counseling and implored Brad to return home to salvage their relationship. Threatening to cite infidelity as grounds for divorce, which could tarnish Ramona's reputation if evidence surfaced, Sherry warned her. Ramona scoffed at the threat, demanding Sherry to devise something substantial. "I've made it clear," she snapped. "I'll stop at nothing to prevent this. If you need to go to Rome and inform the Pope that I'm unfaithful, I'll purchase your plane ticket. But no one, especially you or that redhead, will take my husband without a fight," she declared. She also refused to entertain any alternative proposals until she could speak with Brad. "She's being unreasonable," Sherry later remarked to Brad. "In your shoes, I'd attend the meeting. Refusing to communicate with her could reflect poorly in court." 2 days later, Brad found himself face to face with Ramona in Sherry's office. "Why are you doing this to us?" she inquired. "You brought this upon us, Ramona," he replied calmly. "All right, I may have gotten carried away, drank excessively, and neglected you," she admitted. "I understand why you're upset," she acknowledged. "But that doesn't justify throwing away the 10 years we've spent together," she said earnestly. "I love you, Brad. You have to believe me," Ramona pleaded. "You forget that you lied to me, betrayed my trust, and shattered my heart," Brad countered. "You did things I never imagined you capable of. You didn't consider my feelings at all, Ramona," he added. "It was all about you and your gratification." "But Brad, I battled cancer. You can't understand what that's like," she said sadly. "And after overcoming that, I just wanted to experience life for a while," she explained. "After conquering something like that, perspectives and priorities shift," she reasoned. "Ramona, I comprehend your perspective, but you're mistaken," Brad responded. "And now you'll have all the time in the world to explore life to your heart's content. I won't trouble you anymore. You can do whatever you want. You can entertain entire crowds of men every night and nobody will object," Brad declared as he rose and walked away, prompting Ramona to start yelling after him. "Brad, you can't just abandon me. What do you mean I'm mistaken?" Brad reclined in his chair and gestured for Ramona to join him. "Ramona, you didn't have cancer," Brad stated solemnly. "What?" she started, but Brad raised his hand to silence her. "We had cancer," he said, tears welling in his eyes. "I was there every damn day in the hospital," he snapped. "Only it was worse for me. You felt it, but they gave you medicine for the pain," he remarked. "I had to sit there and watch illness devastate the person I loved most, powerless to do anything. But I had to watch. There were times when I felt so guilty that I was ready to do anything," Brad recounted. "If I could take your place, I would," he confessed. "And I could, but I never left you," he assured her. "I had to pretend to be cheerful so that you could maintain hope and good spirits," he disclosed. "But inside, I was dying a little every day, every night. When they forced me to leave you, I went home and cried for hours," he revealed. "I was so afraid of losing you and not spending the rest of our lives together. And then every morning I had to put on a cheerful, confident expression again when it was all over. Having gone through it, as you put it, I was just as ready to explore life and have fun," he stated. "But the person I wanted to have fun with was busy drinking, and apparently other men besides the husband who went through it with her," he recounted while she looked at her feet. "And one of us had to work hard to start paying all your medical expenses," he added. "So you have a new body and a new way of looking at things, and I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. You have new priorities and my wife is a cheater. You have a new point of view, but from the side you were looking at, you probably didn't see how you were hurting me," he pointed out. "You have to explore life, and I'm heartbroken," Brad said. "You claim to love me. How do you think I'll feel when I hear about all the guys you've had involving with?" he questioned. "I'm sure they're all great guys, Ramona, but where were they when you were in the hospital dying?" he asked again. "Cancer may not have eliminated your body, but the consequences certainly eliminated our marriage," he said seriously. "Maybe it wasn't cancer, but just you," he said quietly. "Sign the damn papers, Ramona. I have nothing more to say to you, ever." Brad left the room. Ramona remained seated in a chair for an extended period, tears streaming down her face. Outside the lawyer's office, Kelly observed Brad's difficult meeting and realized he didn't need further exacerbation of his depression. Clearly distressed, Brad wasn't up for conversation or anything else. Approaching Kelly's 2003 Mustang SVT Cobra, she tossed him the keys. Brad cherished this car. Renowned as the Terminator in 2003, it held the title of the fastest production Mustang for quite some time. "Drive us home," she said, offering a smile. "Eventually, whether she signs the papers or not, your divorce will proceed. Can we just take a little ride?" Brad inquired. "No," Kelly responded. "We have a lifetime ahead for adventures. Right now you're hurting, and I need to get some food into you," she insisted. Parking the car in Kelly's driveway, they exited and entered her home. Brad stole a final glance at the car. Driving it a bit longer would have been enjoyable. Kelly entered the house ahead of him, shedding her coat onto the living room floor. As Brad observed her slow stride across the room, he noticed she had already discarded her coat. Ascending the stairs to her bedroom, Kelly removed her blouse while maintaining eye contact, a smile playing on her lips. Step by step, she shed her shoes, then halfway up, her tights, dangling them teasingly. Reaching the top, she dropped her skirt, leaving it behind. Brad marveled at the expanse of her fair skin on display, a realization dawning upon him that he was still alive after weeks of emotional turmoil. Hastily ascending the stairs, he collected his discarded clothes along the way, a reflexive action. Upon reaching the landing, he found Kelly waiting, engaged in an enigmatic feminine ritual. Kelly unfastened her bra, setting free her chest, which seemed to pulse with anticipation. Brad struggled to draw breath as he gazed at her, his thoughts becoming increasingly difficult to collect.
"Come get me,"
she beckoned, darting down the corridor. Suddenly, Brad grasped the wisdom of the great American press secretary George Clinton in his iconic creation, Atomic Dog.
"Why should I be like this? Why should I chase a cat?"
It all became clear. Brad pursued Kelly to her bedroom, finding her poised on the bed. She knelt before him, methodically disrobing him. Each bared body part received her deliberate attention as their garments accumulated on the floor. As the clothing pile grew, anticipation mounted for the carnal connection awaiting them.
"Kelly,
Brad began, but she silenced him with a gesture. While Ramona embodied softness and submission in closeness, Kelly unleashed wild passion. She engaged fervently, conveying her complete devotion to Brad. She made it known that she was his anytime, anywhere, forever. They explored every conceivable pleasure, and ultimately, Kelly achieved her objective. She redirected Brad's focus from Ramona and the past to herself and their future. Kelly's former husband's infidelity taught her that some men would betray anyone, even a woman as beautiful as herself. Recalling his words when caught for the last time, "A woman, no matter how beautifully she is wrapped, becomes stale after a while and you need to find a fresh one," Kelly promptly ended the relationship. She had longed for someone to cherish her, as Brad did Ramona, believing he was the one. With Ramona's loss, Kelly seized her opportunity, vowing to treat Brad with the love and respect he deserved. Weeks later, Ramona remained defiant, refusing to sign the papers and plotting to catch Brad with Kelly to sabotage his divorce petition. She believed this retaliation would restore balance and reunite them as they should have been. However, she hoped it wouldn't be prolonged, yearning for Brad's presence and feeling unwell herself. Nobody seemed to show concern for her anymore. When Brad returned home, he would lift her spirits, make love to her, and attend to household chores to restore her well-being. Above all, he would reignite her sense of importance. Though it might take time, they would overcome this setback. However, one day, she inadvertently spotted Brad and Kelly at a restaurant, observing them through the window. Kelly reached across the table, tenderly caressing Brad's cheek. He reciprocated by holding her hand and planting a kiss on it. Brad didn't follow Ramona's anticipated course of action. He didn't engage in a physical relationship with Kelly as Ramona had with others. It became evident to Ramona that Brad was deeply enamored with Kelly. Realizing what she had forsaken, Ramona unraveled. Bursting into the restaurant, she screamed at Kelly to stay away from her husband, hurling insults.
"You're the one who let him slip away,"
Kelly retorted.
"No, I didn't mean to,"
Ramona insisted.
"I was just seeking amusement. I never intended for him to leave me." "You won't win over my husband," Ramona continued to scream. "He would already be mine if you would just sign those papers." "Not in a million years," Ramona screamed again. "I'll stop you first."
As onlookers observed, Ramona's complexion drained and she grew faint, struggling to remain upright. Eventually, she sank to the floor, declaring she felt unwell. Regaining her composure, she exited the restaurant. 3 months later, Brad and Kelly tied the knot. True to her word, Ramona never signed the divorce papers. Her cancer resurged, and she was readmitted to the hospital. Despite receiving excellent care, the absence of someone by her side to support her in battling the illness made it unbearable. She lost her will to live, spending her hospital days inquiring about Brad or penning letters to him, pleading for forgiveness or simply asking for a visit. Brad offered to see her if she would agree to sign the papers this time. The cancer battle was swift and merciless, with Ramona deteriorating rapidly over a month before passing away. Brad and Kelly attended her funeral. Brad delivered a poignant eulogy, expressing his deep affection for Ramona and reminiscing about their cherished moments together. He chose not to dwell on their separation, focusing instead on the positive aspects of their relationship. In a touching gesture, he revealed to the handful of relatives in attendance that he and Kelly had decided to name their expected child after Ramona. On some evenings, whether lounging by the fireplace or cruising in his 2012 Lacuna 302 Mustang, Brad came to a realization: both he and Ramona had been mistaken. Ramona claimed victory over cancer, leading Brad to believe they had conquered the disease together. However, the truth was that Ramona had only recently been diagnosed with cancer. Upon leaving the hospital, she underwent a drastic transformation. She became loud, angry, and destructive, wreaking havoc on everything and everyone around her, including her marriage, relationship with Brad, and her family. Eventually, when she couldn't achieve her desires, she turned her destructive tendencies inward. As for Brad and Kelly, they lived happily ever after.
Story 4.
The rays of early morning sunlight filter through our bedroom curtains as I stir awake. I turn to look at Lily, her golden hair splayed across the pillow, still lost in peaceful slumber. A smile tugs at my lips. How did I get so lucky? I slip out of bed, careful not to wake her, and pad downstairs to start the coffee. As the rich aroma fills the kitchen, I gaze out at our perfectly manicured lawn. Everything about our life seems picture-perfect: the modern two-story house with its sleek lines and large windows, our cozy San Diego suburb, and most importantly, the family I've built with Lily. The patter of small feet breaks my reverie. "Daddy!" Jenny exclaims, rushing towards me with arms outstretched. I scoop her up, her giggles filling the air as I twirl her around. "Good morning, sweetheart," I say, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Ready for some breakfast?" She nods enthusiastically. "Can we have pancakes?" "Please." I chuckle. "How about we save those for the weekend?" "I've got to head to the research center soon." Jenny's face falls for a moment, but then brightens again. "Oh, Dad, guess what? We're starting a new project at school about marine life. Can you help me?" "Of course, honey," I reply, sitting her down on a kitchen stool. "What do you want to know?" As I prepare her cereal, Jenny peppers me with questions about different fish species and ocean ecosystems. Her curiosity warms my heart. She's inherited my passion for marine biology. I do my best to answer in terms an 8-year-old can grasp, making mental notes to bring home some of the kid-friendly materials we have at the center. Lily joins us, yawning and tying her robe. "Good morning, you two," she says, giving Jenny a hug and me a quick peck on the cheek. "What's all the excitement about?" "Mom, Dad's going to help me with my school project about the ocean," Jenny exclaims. Lily smiles, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "That's great, sweetie. Your dad's the perfect person to ask." She turns to me, her green eyes twinkling. "Speaking of projects, isn't Jack supposed to stop by this morning? Something about a new documentary." I nod, glancing at my watch. "Yeah, he should be here any minute." I better get dressed. As if on cue, there's a knock at the door. Lily goes to answer it while I hurry upstairs to change. When I come back down, Jack's booming laugh echoes through the house. He's regaling Lily and Jenny with tales from his latest expedition in the Amazon. "Miles!" Jack exclaims as I enter the room, rising to give me a bear hug. There's the man of the hour. I can't help but grin. Jack's enthusiasm is infectious. "Good to see you too, buddy." "How long has it been?" 3 months. "Too long," he replies, clapping me on the shoulder. "But I've got something that might make up for it." "Lily, mind if I steal your husband for a bit?" Lily waves us off with a smile. "Go ahead. I need to get Jenny ready for school anyway." Jack and I settle in the living room, coffee mugs in hand. His eyes are bright with excitement as he outlines his latest project idea, a documentary series on the impact of climate change on marine ecosystems. "I've already got interest from a couple of major streaming platforms," he explains. "But I need a scientific consultant, someone who can really dig into the research and translate it for a general audience." He pauses, grinning at me. "Know anyone who might fit the bill?" I lean back, mind already racing with possibilities. "Jack, this could be huge. The kind of project that could really make a difference, you know?" He nods emphatically. "Exactly. That's why I need you on board, Miles. Your work at the research center, your passion for conservation, you're perfect for this." We spend the next hour hashing out details, our excitement growing with each passing minute. It's not just the project itself that has me thrilled, but the chance to work alongside Jack again. We've been best friends since our college days, and despite his frequent travels, he's remained a constant in my life. He's like a brother to me and a second father to Jenny. As Jack prepares to leave, promising to send over some preliminary documents later, I'm struck by a wave of gratitude. I have a job I love, beautiful family, a best friend who's practically family himself. My life feels perfect. "Uncle Jack," Jenny calls out, racing down the stairs. "Are you leaving already?" Jack scoops her up, tousling her hair. "All right, so, key though. But I'll be back soon, okay? Maybe next time I'll bring some cool footage from my travels for you to see." Jenny's eyes light up. Promise. Cross my heart, Jack replies solemnly, setting her down. He gives Lily a quick hug goodbye, then turns to me. I'll be in touch, partner. This is going to be big. I can feel it. As I watch Jack drive away, Lily slips her arm around my waist. Exciting stuff, huh? She says, leaning her head on my shoulder. I nod, pulling her close. It really is. I can't wait to get started. The rest of the day passes in a blur of meetings and data analysis at the research center. My mind keeps drifting to Jack's proposal, imagining the impact we could make. It's late afternoon when I wrap up my work, earlier than usual. On a whim, I decide to surprise Lily and Jenny by heading home. The house is quiet when I enter. Hello, I call out, setting down my briefcase. Anyone home? Daddy. Jenny's voice rings out from the living room. I find her sprawled on the floor, surrounded by coloring books and crayons. Hey, sweetheart, I say, kneeling beside her. Where's your mom? Jenny shrugs, focused on her drawing. I dunno. She was in the kitchen earlier. I ruffle her hair affectionately. Well, how about you tell me about your day while I go find her? As Jenny chatters about her school day, I listen with half an ear, heading towards the kitchen. That's when she says something that makes me freeze in my tracks. And then after you left for work, I saw Mama and Uncle Jack kissing. My heart seems to stop for a moment. What did you say, honey? Jenny looks up, her expression innocent. I saw Mama and Uncle Jack kissing after you left for work. They were in the kitchen, and I saw them through the big window. I struggled to keep my voice steady. What kind of kiss was it, Jenny? Was it like when Mama or I kiss you goodnight? She shakes her head. No, it was like people do in the movies. You know, the long kisses. The room seems to spin around me. I take a deep breath, trying to process what I've just heard. Part of me wants to dismiss it as a child's imagination, but Jenny's description is too specific, too clear. I kneel down next to her, forcing a smile. Jenny, sweetie, sometimes grown-ups do strange things. But I need you to do something for me, okay? Can you keep what you saw a secret between us for now? Jenny nods solemnly. Okay, Daddy. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, sweetheart. I lie giving her a hug. It's just grown-up stuff. Now, why don't you go get ready for bed? I'll be up in a bit to tuck you in. As Jenny heads upstairs, I sink onto the couch, my mind reeling. Could it be true? Lily and Jack, the two people I trust most in the world, betraying me? I try to rationalize it to find some innocent explanation, but Jenny's words keep echoing in my head. I hear the front door open and close, followed by Lily's voice. Miles, you're home early. I stand up, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. Lily enters the living room, a grocery bag in her arms and a smile on her face. That smile falters when she sees my expression. Miles, what's wrong? I take a deep breath. We need to talk, Lily. Jenny told me something interesting today. Lily sets down the bag, her brow furrowed. Oh, what did she say? She said she saw you and Jack kissing this morning. After I left for work. The color drains from Lily's face. For a moment, she stands there, frozen. Then she lets out a nervous laugh. Oh, that. Miles, you know how kids are. They misunderstand things all the time. I cross my arms, studying her face. Do they? Because Jenny was pretty specific. She said it was like people do in the movies. Those were her exact words. Lily's laughed eyes away. She runs a hand through her hair, not meeting my eyes. Miles, it wasn't what it looked like. It was just a silly moment, that's all. We were joking around, and things got a little carried away. Carried away? I repeat, my voice low and controlled. You got carried away and kissed my best friend? Lily sighs, sinking onto the couch. It was stupid, okay? We've just been spending a lot of time together lately, especially when you're away on your research trips. It didn't mean anything. Her casual admission hits me like a physical blow. Didn't mean anything. Lily, you're my wife. He's my best friend. How long has this been going on? She shrugs, and the nonchalance of the gesture ignites a slow-burning anger in my chest. A few months, I guess. But Miles, it's not serious. It's just a bit of fun. Fun. I echo, my voice eerily calm even to my own ears. You call betraying our marriage fun? Lily stands up, reaching for me. Miles, please. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's not like we're having an affair or anything. I step back out of her reach. Aren't you? Because from where I'm standing, that's exactly what this looks like. She sighs, exasperated. Fine. Yes, Jack and I have gotten close. But it's not like we're planning to run away together or anything. It's nice to feel wanted sometimes, you know? Her words cut deep, each one a knife twisting in my gut. I take a moment to collect myself, to push down the hurt and betrayal threatening to overwhelm me. When I speak again, my voice is steady. I think I need some time to process this, Lily. We'll talk more in the morning. I turn and head upstairs, ignoring Lily's calls behind me. I pause at Jenny's room, taking a deep breath before entering to tuck her in. As I kiss her goodnight, I'm struck by how quickly my perfect world has crumbled. Back in our bedroom, I lie awake long after Lily has fallen asleep beside me. My mind races, replaying every interaction between Lily and Jack, searching for signs I might have missed. But beneath the hurt and confusion, a cold determination begins to take root. They think this is just a game, a bit of harmless fun. They have no idea what they've set in motion. As the first light of dawn creeps through the window, I make a silent vow. They won't walk away from this unscathed. Not by a long shot. The days that follow my confrontation with Lily blur together. I go through the motions of our daily routine, all while my mind churns with plans and observations. Outwardly, I maintain a facade of normalcy, but inwardly, I'm cataloging every detail, every inconsistency in Lily's behavior. One morning, as I'm pouring my coffee, Lily approaches me cautiously. Miles, can we talk about, what happened? I turn to face her, keeping my expression neutral. What's there to talk about, Lily? You made your feelings pretty clear. She sighs, running a hand through her hair. I feel like things have been tense between us. I want us to move past this. Move past it. I repeat, my voice level. You mean pretend it never happened? No, that's not what I meant, Lily says quickly. I just thought, maybe we could work on our relationship. Go to counseling or something. I study her face, searching for any sign of genuine remorse. Finding none, I simply nod. I'll think about it. As I head out the door for work, Lily calls after me. Have a good day, honey. I love you. I pause, my hand on the doorknob. Without turning back, I reply, you too, and step out into the morning sun. At the research center, I throw myself into a new project. It's complex work, involving advanced tracking and data analysis of marine life migration patterns. To anyone watching, I'm simply a dedicated scientist passionate about his work. But there's more to it than that. My colleague, Sophie Taylor, notices my intense focus. During our lunch break, she pulls me aside. Miles, is everything okay? You seem different lately. I consider deflecting, but something in Sophie's concerned gaze makes me pause. Sophie and I have worked together for years. She's not just a colleague, but a friend, one of the few people who truly knows me. Can we talk somewhere private? I ask. Sophie nods, leading me to her office. Once the door is closed, she turns to me expectantly. What's going on, Miles? I take a deep breath, then let it all spill out. Jenny's innocent revelation, Lily's casual admission, Jack's betrayal. As I speak, Sophie's expression shifts from shock to anger. Those bastards, she mutters when I finish. Miles, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I lean back in my chair, my voice cold and determined. I want to make sure they don't get away with this. Lily thinks she can have her cake and eat it too. And Jack, I clench my fist. Jack built his whole career on being the moral, upstanding guy. I'm going to show the world who he really is. Sophie leans forward, her eyes fierce. Whatever you need, Miles, I'm here. We'll make sure they pay for what they've done. Over the next few hours, Sophie and I draft a strategy. We discuss the legal aspects of divorce, ways to ensure Lily doesn't get more than she's entitled to. Sophie, with her background in environmental law, proves to be an invaluable ally. We need to be careful, Sophie warns. Everything has to be done by the book. We don't want to give them any ammunition to use against you. I nod, grateful for her level-headedness. What about Jack? His reputation in the documentary world. Sophie's lips curve into a grim smile. Built on integrity and moral standing. The irony isn't lost on me. We'll need to gather evidence, Miles. Concrete proof of their affair. I'm working on that, I say, thinking of the surveillance tech I've been repurposing from our marine tracking project. But we need to be smart about how we use it. As we continue planning, a knock at the door interrupts us. It's one of our interns, looking flustered. Dr. Vander. There's a call for you at the front desk. It's your wife. She says it's urgent. I exchange a glance with Sophie before heading to take the call. Lily's voice is tinged with panic when I pick up. Miles? Oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach you on your cell. What's wrong, Lily? I ask, keeping my voice even. It's Jenny, she says. She fell at school and hit her head. The nurse thinks she might have a concussion. I'm on my way to pick her up now, but I thought you should know. For a moment, all thoughts of revenge vanish, replaced by concern for our daughter. I'm on my way, I say, already reaching for my keys. I'll meet you at the school. As I drive, my mind races. Is Jenny really hurt, or is this some ploy of Lily's to garner sympathy? I push the thought aside, disgusted with myself for even considering it. Whatever's happening between Lily and me, Jenny is innocent in all this. At the school, I find Lily in the nurse's office, cradling a pale-looking Jenny. Our daughter's eyes light up when she sees me. Daddy! I rush to her side, my heart clenching at the sight of the bruise forming on her forehead. Hey, sweetheart. How are you feeling? My head hurts. Jenny mumbles, leaning into me. The nurse explains that while the fall doesn't seem too serious, it's best to have Jenny checked out by a doctor. As we leave the school, Lily turns to me. I'll take her to the pediatrician, she says. You should get back to work. I know you're in the middle of that important project. I shake my head. No, I'm coming with you. Jenny needs both of us right now. Something flickers in Lily's eyes, surprise? Guilt? But she simply nods. At the doctor's office, as we wait for Jenny to be examined, an uncomfortable silence falls between us. Finally, Lily speaks up. Miles, about what we talked about this morning. I've been thinking, maybe we should try counseling. For Jenny's sake, if nothing else. I study her face, searching for any hint of her true motivations. Is she genuinely interested in saving our marriage, or just trying to maintain her comfortable lifestyle? Let's focus on Jenny for now, I say finally. We can discuss the rest later. The doctor confirms that Jenny has a mild concussion, but should recover fully with rest. As we drive home, Jenny dozing in the back seat, Lily reaches over and squeezes my hand. Thank you for being there today, she says softly. I don't know what I would have done without you. I don't pull my hand away, but I don't return the gesture either. She's my daughter too, Lily. I'll always be there for her. That night, after Jenny's tucked in bed, I retreat to my home office. I've told Lily I need to catch up on work, but in reality, I'm diving deeper into my investigation. Using the tech I borrowed from the research center, I begin monitoring Lily's communications more closely. Hours pass as I sift through emails and text messages. Most are innocuous plans with friends, grocery list, schedule reminders. But then I stumble upon a series of exchanges between Lily and Jack that make my blood run cold. They're not just discussing their affair. They're planning for the future. A future without me. Once the divorce is final, we can start fresh. One of Jack's messages reads, I've got contacts in LA. Your design career will take off, I promise. Lily's reply makes me feel physically ill. I can't wait. Miles is so caught up in his work, he'll probably just hand everything over without a fight. We'll be set. I lean back in my chair, my mind reeling. This isn't just a fling. It's a calculated plan to use me, to take everything I've worked for and leave me with nothing. A knock at the door startles me. I quickly minimize the screen as Lily pokes her head in. Hey, she says softly. It's late. Are you coming to bed soon? I force a smile. Yeah, just wrapping up. I'll be there in a bit. She nods, hesitating for a moment as if she wants to say more. But then she just smiles and closes the door. As soon as she's gone, I pull out my phone and text Sophie. We need to talk. First thing tomorrow. The next morning, I meet Sophie at a small cafe near the research center. Her eyes widen as I show her the messages I've uncovered. My God, Miles, she breathes. I can't believe they would do this to you. He nodded grimly. Neither could I. But the evidence is right there. Sophie's expression hardens. Okay, this changes things. We need to move fast. I'll start drafting the divorce papers today. And Miles, she reaches across the table, squeezing my hand. We want to make sure they don't get a damn thing. As we discuss our next steps, I feel a mix of emotions, anger, hurt, but also a grim satisfaction. Lily and Jack think they've got it all figured out. They have no idea what's coming. Over the next few weeks, I play my part perfectly. To Lily, I'm the oblivious husband, too caught up in his work to notice her deception. I even agreed to her suggestion of counseling, all the while gathering more evidence of her betrayal. One evening, as Lily and I are getting ready for bed, she broaches the subject of our upcoming anniversary. I was thinking, she says casually, maybe we could take a little trip? Just the two of us? It might be good for us to get away, reconnect. I turn to her, studying her face. Is this part of her plan, or a genuine attempt to save our marriage? For a moment, I almost want to believe it's the latter. That sounds nice, I say finally. Where were you thinking? Lily's face lights up. Oh, I don't know. Maybe that little bed and breakfast up the coast? The one we went to a few years ago. I nod, remembering. It was a beautiful place, quiet and secluded. Perfect for a romantic getaway. Or, I think bitterly, for a clandestine meeting. Sure, I say. Why don't you go ahead and book it? Lily beams, leaning in to kiss me. I return the kiss, all the while thinking of the messages I'd uncovered earlier that day, messages planning a rendezvous with Jack at that very same bed and breakfast. As Lily drifts off to sleep beside me, I lie awake, my mind racing. The pieces are falling into place. Soon, very soon, it will be time to spring the trap. The next day, I meet with Sophie again. We've made significant progress on the legal front, ensuring that when the time comes, Lily won't see a penny more than she's legally entitled to. Are you sure about this, Miles? Sophie asks, concern evident in her voice. Once we set this in motion, there's no going back. I nod, my resolve firm. I'm sure. They made their choice. Now they have to live with the consequences. Sophie sighs, then gives me a determined look. All right, then. Let's go over the plan one more time. As we finalize the details, I feel a sense of calm settle over me. The hurt and betrayal are still there, but they've been channeled into something else, a cold, focused determination. Lily and Jack think they're so clever, so careful. But they've underestimated me. They've forgotten that I'm not just a mild-mannered marine biologist. I'm a scientist trained to observe, to analyze, to uncover the truth no matter how well hidden. And soon, very soon, the truth will come to light. When it does, Lily and Jack will learn the hard way that actions have consequences. And those consequences are about to catch up with them in a way they never saw coming. The day of our anniversary trip arrives, and I watch Lily pack with a mix of emotions. Her excitement seems genuine, but I know better now. As she zips up her suitcase, she turns to me with a smile. I can't wait for this weekend, Miles. It feels like forever since we've had time just for us. I force a smile in return. Yeah, it should be nice. Lily tilts her head, studying my face. Is everything okay? You seem distracted, just thinking about work. I lie smoothly. But don't worry, I'm all yours this weekend. She beams, leaning in to kiss my cheek. That's what I like to hear. As we drive to the bed and breakfast, Lily chatters about her plans for the weekend. I respond at the right moments, but my mind is elsewhere, running through the plan one last time. We arrive at the quaint coastal, and just as the sun is setting, the owner, a cheerful older woman, greets us warmly. Mr. and Mrs. Vander. So lovely to have you back with us. Your room is all ready. As we're led to our room, I notice Lily checking her phone repeatedly. When she catches me looking, she quickly puts it away. Sorry, she says with a nervous laugh. Just making sure Jenny's okay with my parents. I nod, saying nothing. Once we're settled in our room, Lily suggests we go for a walk on the beach before dinner. As we stroll along the shoreline, hand in hand, I'm struck by the bitter irony of it all. To any onlooker, we must appear the picture of marital bliss. Miles, Lily says suddenly, stopping to face me. I want you to know how much this means to me. I know things have been difficult lately, but I really want us to work. For a moment, I almost falter. The sincerity in her eyes, the warmth of her hand in mine, it brings back memories of happier times. But then I remember the messages I've seen, the plans she's made behind my back. I want that too, Lily. I lie squeezing her hand. Let's make the most of this weekend, okay? She smiles, relieved, and we continue our walk. As we head back to the inn for dinner, I make an excuse to stop by the front desk. I was wondering if you could help me with a surprise for my wife. I tell the owner, putting on my most charming smile. Of course, Mr. Vander. What did you have in mind? I lean in, lowering my voice conspiratorially. I'd like to arrange for some champagne and roses to be sent to our room later tonight. And I know this is an unusual request, but could you possibly let me know if anyone asks for our room number? The owner looks confused for a moment, but then winks knowingly. Ah, I see. Planning a romantic surprise, are we? Don't worry, Mr. Vander, your secret is safe with me. If only she knew the real secret, I think grimly. Dinner is a tense affair, at least for me. Lily seems relaxed, even affectionate, reaching across the table to touch my hand as we talk. I play along, all the while watching the clock. As we finish our meal, Lily's phone buzzes. She glances at it, then back at me with an apologetic smile. Sorry, it's work. Do you mind if I take this? It'll just be a minute. I wave her off. Go ahead. I'll wait here. As soon as she's out of earshot, I signal the waiter for the check. By the time Lily returns, I'm ready to head back to our room. Everything okay? I ask casually as we walk back. Oh yes, Lily says quickly. Just a small design emergency. All sorted now. I nod, saying nothing. We reach our room, and I pause at the door. I just realized I left my phone at the restaurant. Why don't you go in and get comfortable? I'll be right back. Lily looks surprised but nods. Okay, don't be long. As soon as she's inside, I hurry down to the lobby. The owner spots me and waves me over. Mr. Vander, I was just about to call your room. A gentleman just asked for your room number. I didn't give it to him, of course, but I thought you should know. My heart races. This is it. Thank you, I say. Could you do me one more favor? If you see that man again, could you tell him my wife is waiting for him in room 212? The owner looks confused but nods. Of course, Mr. Vander. But isn't that the room next to yours? I force a laugh. Yes, it's all part of the surprise. Trust me. I hurry back upstairs, not to our room, but to room 212. I booked it earlier under a false name, and now I let myself in, leaving the door slightly ajar. Then I wait. It doesn't take long. I hear footsteps in the hallway, then a knock on our room door. Lily's voice, sounding surprised. Jack? What you doing here? Surprise. Jack's voice, low and intimate. I couldn't wait to see you. Can I come in? Jack, wait. Lily hisses. Miles is here. He just went to get his phone. He could be back any minute. Relax, Jack says. The owner told me you were in 212. I guess Miles must have gone out or something. Come on, we don't have much time. I hear them enter the room next door. My heart is pounding so hard I'm sure they must hear it. I wait a few moments, then step out into the hallway. Taking a deep breath, I throw open the door to room 212. The scene that greets me is exactly what I expected, yet it still feels like a punch to the gut. Lily and Jack spring apart, their faces masks of shock and guilt. Miles! Lily gasps. This isn't what it looks like. I laugh bitterly. Really, Lily? Because it looks exactly like what it is. You and my best friend sneaking around behind my back. Jack steps forward, hands raised placatingly. Miles, buddy, let's talk about this. We never meant to hurt you. Hurt me? I spit out. You're sleeping with my wife, Jack. How did you think that would make me feel? Miles, please. Lily pleads, tears in her eyes. We can explain. It just happened. I shake my head, pulling out my phone. Save it, Lily. I've heard enough of your explanations. With trembling fingers, I pull up the surveillance footage I've gathered over the past week's intimate moments, incriminating conversations. Lily and Jack watch in horror as their secret affair plays out on the small screen. How did you get that? Jack stammers. I'm a scientist, Jack, I say coldly. I observe. I analyze. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? Lily sinks onto the bed, her face in her hands. Miles, I'm so sorry. We never meant for it to go this far. But it did, I say. And now you're both going to face the consequences. Jack's face hardens. What are you going to do, Miles? You can't prove anything with those videos. They're probably not even admissible in court. I smile grimly. Oh, I'm not talking about court, Jack. I'm talking about your career. How do you think your audience will react when they find out their moral, upstanding nature documentarian, is actually a lying, cheating homewrecker. The color drains from Jack's face. You wouldn't. I already have, I say, holding up my phone again. I sent copies of these videos to your production company an hour ago, along with a detailed account of your affair. Jack lunges for my phone, but I step back quickly. It's too late, Jack. It's already done. Lily looks up, her face streaked with tears. What about me, Miles? What are you going to do to me? I turn to her, my voice cold. You get to explain to our daughter why her family is falling apart. You get to watch as all our friends, all our neighbors learn what you've done. And you get to walk away from our marriage with exactly what you're legally entitled to, which, thanks to our prenup, isn't much. You can't do this, Lily whispers. I cannot say. And I have. You both made your choices. Now you have to live with them. I turn to leave, but Jack grabs my arm. Miles, wait. We can work this out. We're friends, aren't we? Brothers, even. I shake off his hand, disgust rising in my throat. We were friends, Jack. We were brothers. But you threw that away the moment you decided to sleep with my wife. With that, I walk out, leaving them to face the ruins of their carefully constructed deception. The next few weeks pass in a blur of legal meetings, uncomfortable conversations, and sleepless nights. True to my word, I file for divorce, citing Lily's infidelity. Jack's career implodes spectacularly as the scandal breaks, his reputation in tatters. Telling Jenny is the hardest part. Her innocent face crumples in confusion and hurt as I try to explain why Mommy and Daddy won't be living together anymore. It breaks my heart, but I know in the long run, it's better than living in a house built on lies. One afternoon, as I'm packing up the last of my things from Lily's house, Sophie stops by to check on me. How are you holding up? She asks, concern evident in her voice. I sigh, setting down a box of books. As well as can be expected, I guess. It's been tough. Sophie nods, then hesitates before speaking again. I know this might not be the best time, but I found a place I think you might like. It's closer to the research center, right by the coast. Perfect for a fresh start. I consider her words. Fresh start. It sounds good. I'd like to see it, I say finally. The house Sophie shows me is smaller than my old one, but as I stand on the back porch, looking out over the ocean, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. What do you think? Sophie asks, coming to stand beside me. I turn to her, managing a small smile. I think Jenny's going to love being this close to the beach. Sophie's face lights up. So you'll take it? I nod. Yeah, I think I will. Over the next few weeks, I throw myself into setting up the new house. Jenny helps me decorate her room, her excitement at being closer to the ocean a balm to my battered spirit. One evening, as Jenny and I sit on the porch watching the sunset, she turns to me with serious eyes. Daddy, are you still sad about Mommy? I pull her close, kissing the top of her head. A little bit, sweetheart. But you know what? I'm also happy. She looks up at me, confused. You are. I nod. I'm happy because I have you. And because we get to start a new adventure together in this new house. What do you think about that? Jenny's face breaks into a wide smile. I think it's going to be awesome. As I tuck Jenny into bed that night, I hear a knock at the front door. It's Sophie, holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I thought you might want some company, she says with a tentative smile. I hesitate for a moment, then step back to let her in. We settle on the porch, the sound of the waves a soothing backdrop to our conversation. How are you really doing, Miles? Sophie asks, handing me a glass of wine. I take a sip, considering my answer. Honestly, I'm okay. Not great, but okay. And I think I'm going to get better. Sophie reaches out, squeezing my hand. You will. You're one of the strongest people I know, Miles. You'll get through this. As we sit there, talking and watching the stars come out over the ocean, I feel a sense of peace settle over me. The hurt isn't gone, and I know there will still be difficult days ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe again. Lily and Jack's betrayal shattered the life I thought I had. But from the pieces, I'm building something new. Something honest. Something real. And as I look out over the endless expanse of the ocean, I realize that maybe, just maybe, this new life might be even better than the one I left behind.